Hello and welcome to Media Musings. Anyone who's lurking in the chat and or watching in the future. Now I'm going to give a blanket spoiler warning, or not spoiler, but blanket trigger warning because we're talking about the Silence of the Lambs. The triggers is we're talking about the Silence of the Lambs.
Just everything.
It's
Yeah.
just very. It's like Eddie. Just say it's just that it's the fucking Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah. Like the Silence of the Lambs is culturally ubiquitous enough that I feel that, like, while we're a big believer in trigger warnings on this channel, like it's the Silence of the Lambs.
Look, we can either spend the runtime of the movie giving a list of trigger warnings for the movie, which is 2 hours 10 minutes, or we can just say it's the fucking Silence of the Lambs and start talking about the movie.
Yeah.
Let's just put it this way. Eddie, if there is anyone who watches this who, for whatever reason, is not heard of the Silence of the Lambs, never watched it, has no clue what it's about, let's just put it this way: it's not a family movie.
Yeah.
No. Okay? Although, to be fair,
I do have your little children to scare the bejeebers out of them.
I do have a friend who apparently their parents showed them this movie when they were 6 and they loved it. And it was their favourite movie growing up. And they loved the books as well.
Okay, what does that say about me, considering at 18 I walked out of the cinema because I didn't like it at that age?
It probably says that you didn't give it chance to get to the really important point that's made in the film that a lot of people miss and that I have opinions about.
No, whereabouts is that in the film? We haven't got
it yet. It's about 2/3 of the way through. It's well past
about when I walked out, yeah.
Suffice to say, it's gory, it's violent. She's a classic. Okay, first thing I want to talk about, because we're going to just jump into the film, I take it. Is anyone else really dislike Clarice Starling?
No.
I am just going to put it out there. I owe the entire world, anyone who interacted with me between the ages of about 16 and 24, an apology. Because her version of feminism, which was, I have to be better than the men and act like a bloke, and, the only good woman is a woman who acts like a man, because that's feminism. That was my understanding of feminism at the time, and if I was anywhere near as bad as that, I apologise.
It was a product of the time, though.
She goes out of her way. Like, the film, it's like strong women. She's an archetypal strong female character.
But you can tell that it's written by a guy who's trying to interpret feminism through a veil of misogyny.
I mean, don't get me wrong, this was written in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Like, I think the books are even early. Well, the
book was like 1988, something like that. And the film came out a couple of years later.
91. Yeah, so it's of its time in that regard. But I'm so glad we've moved on.
But I think but I also think there's a thing that I think it's more, though, if I look at her as a character, particularly in this movie, it's it's more she's trying to put on that tough front, but she is obviously quite vulnerable underneath it still. And obviously,
that's what I mean. That's why she's
Lecter definitely Lecter gets to her, obviously, which Lecter's capable of probably getting to anyone.
Yes, but she's so transparent. The things Lecter says to her and how quickly she breaks when he speaks to her. Like, she can put on the tough guy act all she wants. She is not. Like, she is not. First of all, Crawford should be shot for putting her in a room with Lecter. First of all, she is not mentally or emotionally prepared for that situation.
He's the guy I don't overly like in as far as the FBI guys. And this is Crawford.
racist. Crawford's a racist in the book. Like full on a racist in the book. Which is really funny because when the TV show comes out, Crawford's played by a black guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
Deliberate.
You're talking about how Clarice is portrayed in the TV show. She's not the same. She still has to compete with the guys and be more tough to take on the role, but it's not done in the same way.
Yeah, I think as well. I didn't watch Clarice when it came out. I'm talking about Hannibal, NBC.
Oh, okay.
But to be honest, Clarice got panned after the first episode, so I was like, I'm not getting involved because it's going to get cancelled.
Yeah, I watched the first couple of episodes, and it's okay, but they actually softened her so much that she almost becomes a complete pushover in some aspects. Which,
she already is a complete pushover.
Yeah, but because they got rid of a lot of the hard line that she had, and they didn't replace it with just being a bit more forthright. I know what you mean. She comes over as she's afraid of everything, which isn't exactly how she is.
I was about to make the comparison that it did seem to me a lot of the way through this, like Clarice was trying to hide an anxiety disorder, and that they really should have known better.
Yeah. I will also point out the TV show Clarice. They didn't have the rights to Hannibal Lecter for that TV show. So they're making a Hannibal Lecter TV show without Hannibal Lecter, basically. Because the Hannibal TV show didn't have the rights to Clarice, which is why they went with Will Graham from Red Dragon. It's TV rights and movie and book rights. There's a lot to discuss there.
I mean, they're almost in a way they're two different, but I always view them as like two different universes in a way.
Definitely.
TV show and
I will say as well. With Clarice, I think the reason I disliked her is because it was what the front she was presenting was so fake, but wasn't just fake. I think she should have pushed back more. In the book, if I remember rightly, because it's been a while since I've read it, in the book, she doesn't break quite so easily in front of Lecter. Like, she doesn't, like, tears in her eyes and look down at her shoes while she's, she doesn't do that in the book.
Yeah.
And she's got a bit more pushback to her, and she's a bit more...
I think, Do you think this is time... Do you think, in a sense, that this is more time constraints to the movie to get to certain points with their dialogue, though?
Because
I probably
because I definitely am gonna there's one thing that I think of her as a character. I'm definitely going to defend Jodie Foster's performance in this movie.
Her performance was amazing.
She didn't have
a lot to work with.
Yeah, and I think because obviously the person obviously who commands the presence on whenever he's on screen in that movie is Anthony Hopkins, and I think sometimes. Yeah. Jodie Foster's performance gets overlooked in this movie.
I think part of the problem you have with Jodie's performance is to get that image of what Hannibal's supposed to be, especially as most of the action is where you see Hannibal is just him and Clarice.
Yeah.
Jodie Foster's character has to put across the emotion that the director wants us to feel. So I will say
now it did help, and it did help with this. And Jodie Foster herself has admitted this, that she was legitimately terrified of Anthony Hopkins during the film.
I don't blame her. Do you blame her? Can you imagine being a young actress being put in front of Anthony Hopkins?
Yeah, she just avoided talking to him, like when they didn't have to do a scene together, because she was legit terrified of him, and she's admitted this.
I will say, though, flat out, all of the performances in this movie were spot on.
Yeah.
To the script.
Like, there's not one character I can point to and go, that's badly acted. I might not like the character, but they're all really well acted, especially for a 30-year-old film.
Yeah.
Jeez, don't age me.
I think that as well as...
Well, it's a 31-year-old film.
Thank you, Ring.
You're not supposed to give a woman's age away.
Considering I said
I
how
think
old
that
I was when I watched it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well-
So, what we doing for your 50th, Jen?
I'm gonna have to have a 50th stream, I think.
Well,
Yes, you are.
well, like I said before the chat, I wasn't even born yet, just barely. But
Yeah, stop bragging.
But
because it came out in
What is this? Just
February.
barely.
Hold on, I'm not sure Chaos was born when the sequel came out.
I'm not sure Chaos was
Well, I
born when
wasn't
the
born-
TV show came out.
Well, I wasn't born in the same
How long-
century, so do with that what you will.
When did Hannibal come out?
2010 to 2013.
What the
TV
movie,
show.
the TV show?
No, the TV show.
So, yeah.
The TV show was 2010 to 2013.
You wouldn't have been old enough to watch it, Chaos.
I believe if I don't want to speak for you, I believe that's your favourite interpretation of Hannibal, Noodle, from what I gather, or is the TV?
It is.
Mads
It's
Mikkelsen does help.
definitely- Yeah, Mads Mikkelsen helps. Yeah, I'll admit that. And I got into Danish cinema because of that TV show as well. So that tells you everything. But yeah, Mads Mikkelsen helps. This film annoyed the hell out of me because all the way through the film, I was just like, he's supposed to be Lithuanian. Where the fuck's his accent? Because even a Russian accent would have done because he was raised in a Russian orphanage. Like, there should have been something.
But hold on. Let's be fair about this. Lecter didn't have a backstory really, though. To the same.
Not at the time. No, not at the time.
Yeah,
but it does.
but
it isn't.
We obviously, let's point this out for the record now. People don't know. Hannibal Rising was a book Thomas Harris didn't even want to write. It was just
wrote it in like 2013.
Yeah, he wrote it for a very simple reason that these the movie companies, whoever had the rights to the films of this, wanted to do a Hannibal backstory, and it was kind of like, either Thomas Harris, he basically either he does it or someone else is going to. So that's kind of why that's kind of where he.
Yeah, no, but even in Silence of the Lambs in the book, there's references to him being Eastern European aristocracy.
Yeah.
So there should have been something like an accent.
Yeah, but I mean, movies reinterpret that anyway.
Yeah, that's a minor niggle, and you can just put it down to Hannibal Lecter growing into high society life and getting rid of the accent.
And during his first meeting with Clarice, he very easily slips into a Tennessee drawl.
He does, yes. He's very good at accent switching.
Yeah, so he is probably just hiding his accent.
Yeah. Again, that's why it niggled me, but I was also like, there is an explanation you can find in the text.
I was going to say that. So we talked Anthony Hopkins, Mads Mikkelsen. Anybody know the other actor that's played Lecter?
Oh, I know his name. I know the name. It's Lecter spelled with a K, isn't it?
Yeah.
In Maneater or Manhunter or whatever it's called.
Manhunter, yeah. You're Brian Cox, Scottish actor.
Oh, really?
Very good at. There was a TV movie called Manhunter, which is basically Red Dragon. That was released in, like, I don't know, it's not 86, 87, something like that. And it's a little
Hands up. Brian Cox. I should have remembered that because I remember thinking not the professor.
Yeah.
But my brain did nearly supply the name Brian Blessed there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. But I go, it can't be Brian Blessed. I imagine Brian Blessed doing
Brian Blessed. A nice Chianti. I can't do a big.
Imagine that big boomy voice on Hannibal Lecter.
Sorry, that's why I had to share that because I just got a mental image of like Brian Blessed. Oh gosh.
if there's any,
it's behind the glass in the cell, and
I do love Brian Blessed as an actor, but if there's one actor that should definitely not play Hannibal Lecter, it's Brian Blessed.
Maybe in the parody musical stage show.
Yeah.
Or for the Red Nose Day thing, maybe if they did one.
Yeah.
To be fair, I've seen Brian Blessed play bad, evil people on the shows, and he does a really good job of it. So you don't know, it might work.
Exactly. But anyway, so Clarice is very stereotypical feminist through a misogynistic lens, early 90s. I think if I'd have watched this in the early 90s before I was born, you know,
I like that.
Just because, you know, if Ring ever manages to crack time travel,
I'm going to say on behalf of the two over 40-year-olds in this room, we're not happy with this age shaming going on here.
I'm not age shaming anyone. I'm not age shaming anyone. I'm just saying it was before I was born. If I'd have seen it then, it would have probably. It's one of those weird films. I think it stands up a bit more. And the only reason I can suppose it was like that from the background I come from, if you watch that film and actually pay attention to it, there are people I know now who would look at that film and call it woke.
Yeah.
Probably,
and they wouldn't, and they would mean that as an insult.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I think it was fairly common for us to actually view her as being a feminist. It was even within the thing that to be a feminist, you had to stand up like that to be counted. So it was very much a product of the time, and it's a product of what are part of the problems with feminism now is that attitude from back then that you had to be better than the guys, and the guys weren't good enough, and that leads to man hating.
Yeah. No, I will say, I'll tell you exactly what brand of feminist she was. She was a Spice Girl feminist.
Yeah. Well,
you remember
I don't think I will.
Spice Girls and that level of feminism.
So she was feminist Spice.
No, God, no.
I
see where you're going at, but I think that's I don't know why it is I don't like the comparison. But I see where you're getting at with this, and I don't.
Yeah.
It's because
Scummer's now going to admit he was a Spice Girls fan.
No, I couldn't. I couldn't stand them. I couldn't stand them at the time. I can't stand them now. But I think
how old were you when the Spice Girls were in their prime?
16. But I had a little more taste than that.
I didn't like the Spice Girls either, so there you go.
I didn't either. My school went mad for them, but it was an all-girls school.
I think I will say I will say that I was probably one of the few 16-year-old boys at the time who didn't fantasize over one of them. I'll say that. But
look, growing up 70s and 80s, I was more a fan of early 80s and 70s rock. So, yeah.
So,
look, you were either fantasizing over the Spice Girls or there was someone else you was fantasizing over.
I'll say it was someone else, but
who was the someone else?
I'm not going to say.
I will say that the film does make a point of stating that Clarice should not be a field agent.
Yeah. I mean,
and then they said
they're out.
Anyway.
She's criminology psych graduate.
Yeah.
She tries desperately. You can see when they have the exercise montages.
Yeah.
But
and we do have a lovely bit of a lovely little Chekhov's gun in the exercise montage.
Yes, we do.
And that's what I mean why the film makes a point of saying she shouldn't be in the field.
Yeah.
They basically label her as a profiler in the Clarice TV series.
Yeah.
They call her
that's what she. Well, that's what she is. She's a profiler. She's not a field agent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the thing is, obviously, what is the point they're getting across is that Clarice is she's ambitious. Obviously, she wants, she's ambitious. She really wants to make it as an FBI agent and make it far. She wants to get her ambitions to get into Crawford's unit. But at the same time, it's like you can tell us that Crawford really is using her as a pawn throughout this.
Yeah.
And he's a sex
and that's
pig
the thing.
too.
It's. I mean, really, like I said, putting because he obviously plays on the fact that Clarissa's ambition and so on, and
Oh yeah, he plays her like a
set,
fiddle.
to send her even in the first place with Lecter, and then it's only
Yeah.
obviously later we find out there was an agenda that he had an agenda, and I sort of in a sense understand why Crawford did this, in a certain sense that there was something he was trying to get out of Lecter that he wouldn't tell her. And yet he's probably right when he said Lecter would have picked up on that in a second if Clarice had gone in there with and I'll say Crawford's probably
Let's be
right
honest.
about that, but
Let's just be flat out honest. Crawford is an old-fashioned sexist pig who thinks putting an innocent-looking woman will put Lecter off guard because either he'll have the hots for her or he'll think she's sweet and innocent and want to protect her.
Yeah.
That's Crawford's
Or sweet
thought
and innocent
process
and want
there.
to eat her.
Yeah. That's Crawford's thought
I
process
think
there. He's not expecting her to catch Lecter's interest. He's just expecting her to distract Lecter for a moment.
Yeah.
Like, he is not expecting her to get anywhere near as far as she gets with Lecter.
I think something that bugs me about Clarice with that is that both Crawford and Lecter are playing her, and there was plenty of opportunity for her to be, at least to this tiniest degree, playing her own game.
Yeah, but
she never did.
She's too busy trying to be daddy.
Yeah, no, she plays her own game in the follow-up book in Hannibal.
Yeah,
she
she
comes
does,
into her own in that book.
I mean, obviously, this is the thing because obviously, I'm assuming Chaos. You've never watched Hannibal or read that book.
No.
So you know, obviously, you don't have a real frame of reference to the way Clarissa's character develops, but if you just base it off what we know in this movie. Yeah, she does. In this, Chaos is right in that sense that she doesn't seem to have her own. In this movie, doesn't seem to have her own game. And
she has no initiative of her own. Like she's a pawn. There's nothing she does of her own accord. That's not the only thing she does of her own accord is go to the house near the end, and even then,
she stumbles. She stumbles across.
She's stumbling.
Yeah.
She
didn't go there. She didn't go there because that's where Buffalo Bill was. She stumbled onto Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
and she did that because Crawford told her to gather background evidence to help nail him.
Yeah. And there's a really interesting line really early on in the film where Crawford tells her, "Don't talk to Lecter. I just want a straight report." If you can't get anything out of him.
Yeah, basically that the famous line, "You don't want Hannibal Lecter in your head."
Yeah, there's a lot of famous lines in this movie. That's one of them. Tell him nothing personal.
The other one's in the chat.
Crawford will have known this. Yeah. Crawford will have known, that as the head of behavioral sciences, Crawford will have known that you do not have to say a word to a person to know a lot about them. By the way they dress, the way they carry themselves, all these different things, their accent, and all of these things are what Lecter picks up on. Crawford knew exactly what he was doing sending her in there. And he knew that Lecter would get more about her from what she didn't say than what she did.
And we got obviously remember, and obviously we got to remember the character that she is being sent in to deal with here is Lecter, who is going to pick up on the subtlest things.
Renowned psychiatrist.
I mean, and the way the way he's built up in the books is that even though he is this known serial killer, he's actually still very, very respected in the field of psychiatry.
Yeah.
I mean, in
the books, he's writing journal. Yeah, in the books, he's writing journal articles that are being printed in peer-reviewed journals while he's in prison about himself and his own diagnosis. Because in the book, Chilton writes a book about him to get him declared insane. And then Lecter writes an article, sends it to a journal, and they print it, and it completely debunks Chilton's book.
Yeah.
And they follow that through in the TV show as well. And it's hilarious because Lecter knows more about his own psychiatry than the man who's supposed to be treating him. But I do want to talk about Chilton.
Yes,
I'm going to use that segment. Let's talk about Chilton.
Okay, well,
that guy is pure smam.
Okay, we were just talking about Crawford being a misogynistic pig. Let's talk about Chilton.
Yeah. Chilton is...
The very first thing in this movie is he practically tries to hit on Clarice in a real
he's basically verbally humping her leg. It's like ew. It's like you get the impression that if Lecter had have seen him speak to her like that, Mig wouldn't have been the only one who swallowed his tongue. Like, Chilton to me was creepier and more gross than Mig and Lecter in that movie.
Yeah.
Because he's just an old school misogynistic sexist prick.
And I think
he's a real danger because he's a psychiatrist who likes to torture his patients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he's do you know what he is? He's the Umbridge of this franchise. As in, he's the evil that we've all come across somewhere. Like that one
bring it up.
Bringing it out early.
We've got to get it. We have to get it in this somewhere in this.
Yeah, he is the Umbridge because
he's the everyday evil.
Pretends
the
to be normal.
Dislike. Yeah.
Yeah, the evil that pretends to be normal, but very definitely isn't.
Yeah.
And like I said, it doesn't. And it's not. It's like I said. It's like I said. It's subtle talk. It's not necessarily. It's subtle psychological talk. It's not like say this when we say torture. It's more subtle psychological, like he does with, at least he tries to do with Lecter. I'd say.
There's a few things Chilton does.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I remember
you've got the lack of window, the TV.
No, I wouldn't call the TV like the TV subtle.
Yeah.
No, the TV's not subtle, but
the thing is, it's like it's little things like and this goes into more like this in the books, like take Lecter's books away, remove the seat on his toilet. That little things like that.
Yeah, there's a bit in Red Dragon where Chilton threatens to take Lecter's toilet away.
Really?
Yeah, in Red Dragon, there's a bit.
So.
I've read the book. I've not seen the film, but there's a bit in Red Dragon where he says something like, "You were rude. When you're rude, you get punished, and I will take you." And he passes this really snide, nasty comment about and the only human contact you'll have is listening out for the diaper cart coming down twice a day. And the comment that gets, it's really nasty, like the way it's put. But Chilton says it really casually, and it's one of those. It's like, how do you dehumanize someone whose entire thing is they want to behave with dignity and respect?
Yeah.
And it's nasty on so many levels.
But I will admit though, I will say the thing they do in the film there. I will admit, if I was locked in a cell and they turned up blimmin', they forced me to watch Televangelist turned up really loud. Now that would be crueler than usual torture.
I mean, I would say at that point, Chilton's already dug his own grave. Warmed his own oven.
8 hours a day of Kent's oven.
He's a dead man.
Yeah. Let's put it this way. I'd probably go full Lecter on him if I was in that position myself.
Yeah, there's a reason Lecter goes full Lecter on him.
Yeah.
I think we're agreed.
I'd actually go full Lecter and Jigsaw as well, combined on him.
I will say there's a really interesting thing that I've noticed having read. I've read the first, in story order, I've read the first 3 books. I've not read Hannibal yet.
I've not. See,
I know the bits of it.
The only one I haven't read is Hannibal Rising, actually, but
Hannibal Rising is one of those books you kind of. The thing about Hannibal Rising is, if there's one thing you can say about Thomas Harris, is that he's gone back and read his own work and made it fit.
Yeah.
And it does make me wonder how much of it he already had in mind.
Yeah.
Because there's certain things, like even in this film,
sure
there's a bit in this film where I've just written the word Misha capital letters with 3 exclamation marks, which we'll get to.
I'm sure he had idea. Even though he didn't really want to write it, I'm sure he had an idea in his head as a backstory for this character.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you have to pad it out and everything,
and
it removes the mystery, because sometimes you want mystery for characters. So.
Yeah. I will say as well, Chilton is not only a nasty piece of work and a sexist pig, he's also a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
He is flat out an idiot. Like, the way he describes... Okay, first of all, there's no such thing as a psychopath. Although there may have been under DSM-4. I'm not old enough to remember that.
I don't know if that term was still used by medical health professionals.
There's no such thing as a pure psychopath. That's just nonsense. Chilton calling him a prized asset for research purposes. Look,
why? He can't get shit out of him.
Look, if you genuinely thought that was a sick human being, you're the one who should be in the cage if you're saying things like that.
Yeah.
Just flat out. That's what put me off Chilton right off. I was like, you believe you've got a sick human being and your only thought is to torture them and that you want to No.
Well, I think this is one of the reasons I think now, I don't know if when Thomas Harris was writing these things that, I mean, he certainly obviously would go that way in books like Hannibal and Hannibal Rising, but it's almost like Lecter's, I mean, in the book Red Dragon, Lecter's a bit of a minor character in a certain respect. He's not, but
he's not the main character, is
he? In this book, in Silence of the Lambs, he's I suppose you could maybe say anti-hero a little bit. That he's obviously he's evil. He does evil things, but it's sort of maybe established that sometimes the people he's doing stuff to, or the people that he goes after, might on some level maybe earn it. Like Chilton.
This is
why they give him an antagonist like Chilton. You know.
Well, this is the magic of Hannibal Lecter. It's none of us have anything psychologically wrong with us that would make us think we would do that. But we are cheering him on a little bit when he kills someone. Because that person's done something to wind us up.
Yeah.
But
and I think every one of us has occasionally thought about somebody else in the world that, geez, I wish somebody would hit your head.
Yeah.
The greatest defense to Hannibal Lecter is, what anything he perceives as being. Yes, exactly. I mean,
I didn't mention her at all.
You didn't have to, Jen.
The greatest, offense in Lecter's mind is discourtesy or rudeness, or what he may perceive to be rudeness.
Or lying to him. He doesn't like people who lie.
He doesn't like people who lie to him. He doesn't like people. Well, but in lying, he would consider probably rude as well in a certain way.
Yeah, exactly. I think he considers obfuscating the truth rude. But he's actually, I think he's a little bit impressed when he realizes that Clarice lied to him. Because he still talks to her afterwards. So clearly she's not pissed on the chips with him. So, there's a line there. And he's got this very old world view of what is and isn't courteous, like he's read an etiquette book from the 1700s.
Yeah, but it's kind of like where we would say, okay, someone's a rude bastard. Do they really deserve to be butchered and eaten for the hat? I mean, but I think there is that kind of. I mean, if I could make a comparison between Lecter and another horror movie villain, Jigsaw from the Saw films, there's definitely similarities there. A lot of the people that he does what he does to are quite bad people in their own right. But at the same time, you know, sometimes it's the offences, like, you know, the things that Jigsaw might take offence to are similar things that Lecter that we can also look at as what, you know, like a good example. Lecter is in the books the violinist in that orchestra who fucks up
he's not a violinist. He's a trombonist.
Something like he fucks up, and that in a way that's for some reason Lecter takes that as an affront.
Because it destroys the beauty of the symphony.
Yeah,
and Lecter's all about beauty and aesthetics.
And like I said, there's a similar dynamic with Jigsaw from the Saw films. That you know, there's definitely people that he's talked to who've done really bad things, but then other people who've offended him or something in some other way where he's kind of breaking his own and
that's
way,
where he stops being an anti-hero and starts being the villain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got lots of anti-heroes who do go out of their way to kill the villains. You know, people then you've got a character who's like the Punisher.
The Punisher, Well, the Punisher is a good example because I would call the Punisher an evil character in a lot of respects. You know, the Punisher is evil, but
but the Punisher doesn't kill people for superfluous reasons.
Yeah, but that's like saying Dexter's not evil.
Yeah, Dexter Morgan, another good example. You know?
Dexter is almost a modern retelling to a certain
of Hannibal Lecter. Yeah, but it's like, where do you draw your lines? Basically, are you? And it's a philosophical question of what matters more to you, intent or result.
Yeah,
are you a pragmatist or a realist? You know, and it's these questions that it's really interesting when you look at Lecter, because we can also, yes, that dude's a psychopath, he bit someone's face off.
Yeah.
But we can also go, you know what, if I was locked in a room for 24 hours a day with someone blaring at TV evangelism at me, threatening to take away my toilet, talking to me like I was trash, and handcuffing me every time my meals came, I think I'd snap eventually as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get.
Now, would I bite someone's face off? Probably not, but you don't know what you would do in that extreme situation.
It depends what you're able to do, though, too, because, I mean, Hannibal was often restrained, so biting somebody's face off becomes perhaps your only form.
But, I mean, he's done it before. He did. There's the story of when he pulled the sick prisoner routine.
Yeah.
And then he gets them by ordering a second lunch. And I'm sorry, when a cannibal orders lamb extra rare, you know some shit is going down.
Yeah, it did seem like it feels almost like Hannibal is the gentleman cannibal, to the point where he warns everyone before he kills them.
He's a full-on cartoon villain. Like, can you imagine if he was animated? He'd have like a mustache and a cape, like, and he'd be making puns all the time. Wait, he does that in the film anyway.
All I can see is the guy who's in the thing with Dastardly Dog. You know, he's got the hat.
Yeah. That's Hannibal Lecter animated. It is. That's exactly what it is.
Full on Snidely Whiplash.
Oh, is that the name of the character?
Yeah, Dudley Do Right, Snidely Whiplash.
Yeah, but he is. If you look at him, what does he do? He tells them anagrams and makes puns about being a cannibal. He complains that people are rude. And the thing is, they call him a psychopath, but he doesn't lack empathy. Yeah. He does not lack empathy. At every point in this film, when he is on screen, he matches the mood of the moment perfectly. The character does not lack empathy.
He's got the full range of emotion too. He just thinks that some people are cattle.
Yeah, basically. Pigs, I think, is the preferred
was the term
nomenclature. Yeah.
Well, that would explain the dead cops.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, Chaos.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. But yeah, you're not wrong. But he's. And the reason I'm talking about Lecter and the way his mind works is because Lecter does all of that. Yeah, he's evil, he's the cannibal, whatever. Chilton carries the photo of the injuries Lecter gave the nurse in his inside pocket.
Yeah.
That's gross on so many levels.
Yeah.
Like there's no. That's gross. I noticed that and I was just like, ew.
That was a bit of a moment of I couldn't tell if it slightly pulled me out of the story that there was this really random plot device, or if this guy was just a massive cunt.
Yeah, like I assumed he was a massive cunt.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I think
like even if he'd taken it out of his desk and put it in his pocket to tell her as he was walking, that's still fucking gross.
Yeah.
No. Chilton gets exactly what he deserves, and I hope Hannibal Lecter had a good 3-course meal out of him. But this thing of Pulse not over 85, the way he switches the accent. What I really like with Clarice, in this one moment, Clarice knows how to handle Chilton.
Yeah.
First she flatters him, and then later on she just shuts him down like, dude, call the DA. If you've got a problem, let me do my job.
Yeah.
It's like he's the only man she full on like stands up to in this film. And
yeah, because he's a bit of an empty twat.
And I will say as well, why does she keep calling all the men sir? Like, is this a South American thing? Is this like a Virginia thing? Did anyone else notice it? Every single man she speaks to, she calls sir in the film.
There is an aspect in some areas where the people's common addressing in those sort of jobs would be sir and ma'am. So, especially higher ranking.
Yeah, but even when she's talking to civilians or she's not necessarily doing the job, she calls
it's a politeness thing.
It didn't clock as weird to me, I think, because when I was in Texas, there were random coppers who, when I had to interact with them, they called me sir.
Yeah, okay, fair. This is what I was saying. Is it a cultural thing?
It's a cultural thing.
Also, it could be a, showing deference as a disarming tactic.
Yeah, she does that a lot as well. I will say, I just had a flashback to you trying to call my dad sir, and that explains everything.
Yeah.
But yeah. Early 90s casual racism, folks. We just need a banner for that. Early 90s casual racism. All the security guards are big black guys.
Yeah, but is it that casual?
It's never explicitly commented on, so yes, it's casual.
I mean,
but there's other racism in that movie that isn't as casual.
I
think it's more the book. I think it's more the book Hannibal, where Barney's gotten into a bit more as a character, though, isn't it?
Why were we being primed?
Yeah.
Why were we being primed to be afraid of Barney? Did you notice with the score? We were being primed to be afraid of Barney when she was talking to him, and he seemed absolutely. If you watch it silently without the score, he's absolutely lovely, or he seems to be.
And Barney in the book is absolutely. I mean, because it really gets obviously when we get into Hannibal, it's like he's one guy who sort of knows he didn't have anything to fear from Lecter, because he's the one guy in that institution that Lecter quite liked him, because Barney. Because there was a respectful relationship, and Barney would obviously, have to sort of say, "Listen, doctor, I'm going to have to restrain you, and here's what's good." But he would do it it would be done in a sort of polite, courteous way, and they struck up a bit of a friendship.
Yeah, mutual
we were talking about cartoon stuff earlier. I've got Barney the dinosaur stuck in my head every time you say Barney. I've got this image of Clarice talking to Barney the dinosaur.
I think
I'm sorry. I just have to ask a question. Are any of you high to excuse any of this?
I mean, I've had a few drinks, if that counts.
You go for it. Has anyone else got an excuse?
Well,
No. This is just what we're like, folks. Deal with it.
Yeah, and in fairness, I'm not actually drunk. To say I've had a few drinks is to say that since 8 o'clock this morning, I've had 3.
Why were you drinking at 8 o'clock this morning?
Chaos. That's chaos.
Okay.
Even I don't drink that early.
Even pirates wait till 11.
No, well, here, yeah, I was gonna say now. What were you drinking? Because if you drink too early, most alcohol, if you drink too early, you're an alcoholic. If you drink rum too early, you're a pirate.
Well, it's Malibu and Coke, so rum.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
actually,
fair
rum.
That's fair enough.
Fair enough.
Well, I know. Malibu might be taxing the definition of good rum, but anyway,
It's taxing the definition of alcohol.
Yeah. But anyways, I disagree that the score is priming you to fear Barney. I think it's more immersing you in the general vibe of Clarice's first descent into the asylum.
Yes, I agree
Yes,
with
but
that.
if you look at the camera work, you're primed and then it tilts to look up at him. It makes him seem bigger, and it's just maybe because I'm too used to seeing black guys filmed that way by white people who haven't quite dealt with their own internal racism.
Yeah.
But that's how you film a black guy when you want to be racist. And you want to make him a danger to the poor white woman he's looking at. That's how that's done.
That being said, the film, the cinematography and the score is very much centered on getting you into Clarice's mindset as she's descending. Clarice is from Virginia.
Okay, so you're suggesting that there might be an element of latent racism within Clarice.
Yeah. Yeah, she grew up in West Virginia, then got moved to Montana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's white bread.
There'd definitely be a cultural element of this around her as she grew up. Definitely.
Yeah. So I noticed that, and it's something that annoys me when I see it. But I can see the reason for it.
Yeah.
She's a cop. She's a profiler.
Yeah.
Like since this movie came out, we have had entire political movements, protest movements, you name it, about the fact that cops racially profile people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's basically the core of BLM. It was basically Stephen Lawrence in the UK. It was, and it goes all the way back. So we're being primed to fear Barney, but I don't know if that's because we're being primed to empathize with Clarice or because we're just being primed to fear him. I'm going to say to empathize with Clarice because that seems to suit the film more.
And she would have been trained. She would have been trained as a profiler to profile racially because of where she was trained. So she probably was automatically being a little bit.
But then but the same thing. This is the weird thing that they, because one of the things that's brought up about her is that she was, but the strange thing I think was mentioned about her that she'd. One of the things she'd written and where I think Crawford first became aware of her is that was looking at the FBI's civil rights record, especially during the Hoover era. Which, to be honest, was not good, to put it mildly.
But again, I think that's a really telling moment because if you take it as she was racially profiling the guy, what you've got there is actually a really progressive, intricate commentary on how even the people who believe they are staunchly anti-racist still have implicit biases and have to unlearn those. Now, do I think a horror movie from 1990 with a bad guy who wears women's faces as a mask, it was going that deep? Maybe. There's definitely a journal article in it.
Yeah. So the question is, is that scene problematic or is that scene secretly woke?
Jen, why is there a black shadow trying to climb your wall?
That's the dog. The one
That's
who was
cute.
on my
He was
lap
trying to
before.
climb up to the
For
picture.
3 years. Yeah, he likes the wall because they're carpet layered. He likes them.
Ah, yeah, fair enough. So yeah, either it was being really clever and well beyond its time, and people just missed it because, of course, they fucking did, or we are reading way too much into it. Either way, it was an interesting thing to discuss.
Yeah.
I think the fact we're able to read it into it gives us the ability to give a bit more charity to the film in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we couldn't read that into it, especially in the context of her having grilled Crawford about the FBI's civil rights record, that leans me more towards thinking it might have been deliberate, or at the very least, it was an attempt to soften her.
Yeah.
Because don't forget, early 90s, you're coming off the back of the blaxploitation genre in America.
Yeah.
So that's going to be there in the minds of the audience. And it's a horror movie. Of course, it's going to play up to any trope that's going to make your audience jump.
Yeah.
But equally,
I mean,
it's saying,
80s
okay,
American
we're leaning
TV.
into this, but we don't believe it. It's
80s American TV was the full trope of racism, homophobia, and sexism. So,
Maybe it's because they knew.
Trinity.
Maybe it's because they knew. Maybe it's because they knew that Barney would eventually go on to be the commissioner of the Baltimore Police Department. I'm the only one who's seen The Wire, so I'm probably the only one. The actor Frankie Faison plays the chief, the commissioner of police in The Wire.
Okay, now I have to watch it. You're the second person to mention The Wire to me in 2 days. My therapist mentioned it to me yesterday and told me I should watch it before I moved to Baltimore.
And I can still only see a big pink dinosaur.
I'm kind of like, you've all got to watch it because it'd be a perfect. It's perfect for media musings, but we'll.
But that's a series, not a movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a lot more effort.
And then we get our first image of Lecter. And it's really interesting the way they contrast him with the other prisoners who are like yelling. One's yelling at the other, and one's screaming obscenities. And
then there's Miggs, obviously.
And then there's just Lecter stood there looking like he's at parade rest, just waiting for her.
Yeah.
Like, again, it's that respectful. He stood, he greets her very calmly, and it's very.
And all the others. All the other cells are dark and shadowed, and he's well lit.
He's well lit, yeah. And we find out later in the film that Barney controls the lighting for him.
Yeah.
Which is just that amuses me.
Well, which would make sense with Barney because, not Barney. It would make sense that they would control lighting given the whole aspect of doing horrible things to prisoners and psych patients, because controlling the lighting controls their sleep and.
Yeah. But also it makes you realize that later on when she goes back and he's in the cell in darkness trying to look creepy and like a cartoon villain, Barney was in on that.
Yeah.
Barney went along with that.
Yeah, because he claps and then the lights go up.
Yeah. So it's like, so you basically leaned into the psychopath's grandiosity there.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the symptoms of ASPD is grandiosity and a flair for the dramatic.
Oh yeah.
Like,
and
with a bunch of other stuff. But it's one of those things. It's like Barney leaned into that and didn't tell him that came across a little bit hammy. Like a lot of things Lecter does is a little bit.
There's a lot. Let's be honest. Anthony Hopkins very deliberately hammed it up in this.
You've got to, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've got there, and she calls him Dr. Lecter. He asks her for her credentials. So she immediately puts him in a position of power in that conversation, and then wonders why he breaks her down in 3 sentences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what was
Honestly,
Crawford thinking putting her in there?
The way she broke down in 3 sentences, I was half expecting her to be like playing him for information using that tactic.
Yeah. Like I didn't. It took me a moment to realize that no, she's not playing him. She's actually just that stupid, and just Crawford has just been that thick. And it's like, you sort of look at it and you think, how is this woman who we've been shown is ultra competent in so many ways? That can't, like, I genuinely second guessed it for a moment.
Yeah.
And it's
Same.
like,
I was just like,
that's part of why I don't like her, because it's all so fake. Most of her character's really fake. So I don't like her for the same reason Lecter took issue with her. Yeah. It's like, I can look at someone's shoes and tell you if they're cheap or not. Hang on.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that as well. There's I think there's a lot of really blatant foreshadowing and mirroring that goes on in this film, and I think that Hannibal Lecter being assisted with the lights is a little bit of foreshadowing to like guards should really try and get on with him later in the film.
Yeah, well, and like the whole, like basically from the moment Clarice goes off, enters the FBI building, there's a lot of Chekhov's guns and foreshadowing. Because when she walks by that random office, you see that shot of the blackboard about Buffalo Bill. And though it doesn't say Buffalo Bill, it's just like skinned.
Yeah.
Written on the blackboard, along with a bunch of other details that I didn't quite catch.
See, the one thing that I'm surprised wasn't foreshadowing was when they did like a bunch of training scenes with her, and she didn't check her blind spot.
Oh no, that was a Chekhov's gun.
Okay.
Because that was a Chekhov's gun that goes off in the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't check her blind spot, and then when the lights go out in the house, she
Oh right, I missed that. Yeah.
Yeah. Bill almost gets her because she's not checking her blind spot.
Yeah. Also, I feel like you could.
Just be honest. Bill should have had it. Bill, had he not taken that moment to sort of like try and savor it, he would have fucking got her.
Yeah. Like the only reason she survived is because she had her gun already loaded, and he cocked it, and she heard it getting cocked.
Yeah, like you'd think he'd have cocked it when she entered the room.
Or, cocked it when she was down with the senator's daughter.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I think as well with Bill is that he felt so much less bad somehow than all of the other even sane male leads. Like I found that personally a lot of the people throughout this film were just so detestable that the bad guy was just like, oh, there's just another dude.
Yeah, I will say there's a line from the Hannibal TV show where you get Jack Crawford, another psychiatrist, Will Graham, the journalist Freddie Lowndes, all in a room together, and the line from the TV show is, "We're all psychopaths here. We're all psychopaths." And I think that's very true of this film and the characters in it.
Yeah.
If you take psychopath to mean, not nice person.
Yeah, and so Chaos was just kind of moving the conversation along to Bill. Should I put up the banner?
Okay, I think I'm going to just say I think this is probably the point in the stream where it might be a good idea for me to I'll listen in on my phone but go and have a cigarette, because this is probably the part that of this where I'm, you say, least qualified to speak on, and I think it's better that other people in this stream speak on it rather than me.
Yeah, for non-gender, at least non-gender non-conforming, if not outright transgender people about to discuss Buffalo Bill. Hold on to your hats, folks.
Oh yeah.
Gonna be a rough ride.
Especially once you hear my opinion on it and my take on it. Which you may want to eat me.
I suspect there's going to be some a partial agreement and a discussion.
I am going to make my comment, make my statement, then I'm going to ask you to give me time to explain myself. That's how I'm going to do this.
Well, you go first, because then we can build off what you say.
Yeah.
This film, this book, this concept of Buffalo Bill the serial killer is not transphobic. That's my statement. I'm angry because the entire world told me for years that this film was transphobic, and I listened. It's not. I have reasons. First of all, I would like to point you to the name of the director of this film. The director who made this film finished making this film in 1991 and then promptly made Philadelphia, starring Tom Hanks and Antonio Banderas, in 1993. A film about a man dying of AIDS fighting for his employment rights. This director is not a bigot.
You
Point
can
one.
be.
That's
you can
point
still,
one. That's point one.
You can still be transphobic, but not be homophobic.
Yes, no, I'm aware. But there are also characters in Philadelphia who cross-dress, and it's never even commented on. It's just there. And he never puts a transphobic word into the mouth of a good character in Philadelphia either. And there is a comment passed. 2, the character who is established as the main brains behind everything that's going on, Dr. Lecter, in this film, categorically and outright says Buffalo Bill is not transsexual. Now, transsexual is the time-appropriate term for transgender. In 1993, that was the term. Dr. Lecter tells us that he was rejected for sex reassignment surgery from the only 3 hospitals in America at the time who offered sex reassignment surgery. And they rejected him because of issues of his past, which we presume are psychological issues and a poor background. Now, I'm not saying that people with a traumatic history can't be transgender. That's not what the film's saying either. But it bears remembering that the one person who is deemed to be the ultimate authority on Buffalo Bill says he is not transsexual. So anyone who looked at Buffalo Bill, heard that, either didn't understand the film, missed that statement completely, or was already transphobic and looking for an excuse. Even the way Buffalo Bill's presented. Like, I've heard the lurid stories about this film for years. First time I watched it today, I've heard the lurid stories, and I was expecting, I think people play up the gender aspect way too much about this film.
Oh.
Like, it's played up way too much for what's actually in the film. And there's clearly a sexual element to the guy's killings. Of course there is. You don't put lipstick on and ask if would you fuck me? There's clearly a sexual element, but it's not. This is not someone struggling with their gender.
Yeah.
This is someone with a different kind of background. As Dr. Lecter puts it about someone else entirely, a garden variety manic depressive, which was BPD, which can which does have a symptom cluster, which is to do with your self-identity and how you interact with the world.
Yeah.
It's not to do with you, it's just self-identity in general. How you identify and how your identity shifts in different contexts. Buffalo Bill is not, nor do I think was ever was or intended to be a stereotype or a caricature of being transgender.
Yeah.
For me, like, Buffalo Bill is not. He's not transgender to start with. He's just not. There's clearly something else going on in that guy's head, and the fact that he doesn't want to be these women. He wants these women. He wants to own them, and he owns them by wearing them. Like, that's his pathology. His pathology is not I want to be like these women. It's I want to be in them. And you can read as much Freudianism into that as you like. Because that's where it's leading.
Freud was a freak.
Yeah, Freud was a freak, but you know what I mean?
Equally, Freud strikes far too commonly.
What I believe has happened is something like what's happened is the story of this film took on a life of its own, and I think any transphobia that's attributed to this film should be attributed to the audience, not to either the writer, the director, or the creator. Yeah. Because for its time, now we're talking 1993 here, for its time, this film was progressive as fuck. Because this film would have been well within norms of the time in 1993 to not have that statement
91.
Made. 91. Sorry, I'm
definitely.
Philadelphia.
This is
91.
This
like,
is where
if,
the
if
problem
they'd have
with
said
it
in
comes
1991 he's transgender, so he's killing women, that would have been generally accepted as truth.
And it was.
Like,
it was.
Yeah,
that was the problem.
It was. This film actively challenged that stereotype and that viewpoint.
Yeah.
So I have issues with anyone who,
mid 80s to about the mid 90s, and even after that, it was still done to a fair bit. If you wanted a weird, freaky serial killer,
you put a man in a dress. Yeah,
you put a man in a dress, and that is what was.
Gonna check something real quick.
It's like late 80s. You've got peak of the AIDS crisis. You've got all these things going on all at once, and you can't. And straight people back then, if you said to straight people, trans, gay, like the stereotype
it wasn't just
of the
trans
little
people.
boy
It was
who wore
a gay
dresses.
person or a trans person, and we put them in a dress because it makes it even more creepy. And they're going to be our killer. They're going to be
for comparison.
And let's be honest, the stereotype of gay boys wearing dresses and playing with dolls. Yeah. That was a thing then.
For comparison, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective came out 3 years later.
Yeah. That was definitely transphobic.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I know about the twist ending.
Oh, that's incredibly transphobic.
Yeah. So I will say, to finish off my little rant, really appreciate Scummer stepping out. Appreciate that you understood that, there's not his voice there. Really appreciate him doing that. He's awesome. He's a better ally than a lot of people give him credit for. And just, hats off to Scummer for that one. He's really good about that. But yeah, I don't think this film was transphobic. And what really annoys me is the cultural language around this film. I know trans people who are scared to watch this film because they've been told it's transphobic. Because the transphobia the audience have that they've applied to their reading of this film has become the dominant narrative about this film.
Yeah.
And that really pisses me off because that is a fundamental lack of media literacy.
And to be honest, I didn't walk out of the film because I felt it was being transphobic. I walked out of the film because it freaked me the fuck out.
Yeah, that's valid. That
Yeah.
is valid. I wouldn't want to watch it in the cinema either.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um,
I think I would potentially draw a line. Like I would agree with you up to a certain point, and then I would make a distinction. In
Go
that
on.
there is with it being made when it was especially, there is a certain amount of baked-in transphobia that still existed in relation to the idea of determining whether or not someone is really a trans person, for example.
Yeah.
But given the time period, it was actively trying to be less transphobic, and therefore I would refer to it as a non-transphobic piece, even though
And you
if I
can
were
do
to
that now
dissect
in
it,
hindsight, but in the time when it came out, because there was that public perception that Hollywood was, to a large extent, to blame for, it still came across in that manner at the time, despite those lines in the film, because 90% of people would have totally missed them or not cared about them.
Yeah.
so yeah, that's an audience thing then, really.
Yeah, but that's you can't.
Oh
you
yeah,
can't
no,
blame
it
the
goes back
creator
to
for
what
the audience.
it's more about the audience being transphobic than the movie being transphobic. Oh, which is where Hissy is completely right about that. And a product of its time is the reason why it's perceived as transphobic. If you look at it back at it
compared to
now,
now, it's transphobic, but back then it was progressive as hell. I would say in certain
I
times,
don't even think it
it's
comes
fairly
across as
progressive for
transphobic
now.
now.
It's
I
fairly
think
progressive for now. Yeah.
Yeah, if it was being made now, I think more would be made about the fact that it's not. They would have another actor say, "Oh, this must be a trans person," and then somebody definitely reinforcing what was already said, that no, they're definitely not trans, and they would have gone down that line just to make the differentiation.
Yeah.
Although that would depend completely on which studio was doing it, because they still do this, and writers still write this shit, talking about our punching bag again.
yeah.
I know I sort of keep quiet through this bit, and I was exactly going to make a point about that what Rings put up there. This is how far we've come in 30 years. That the perception that trans people were maybe murderers, to now that they're just sex offenders in toilets.
Yeah, but
well,
I mean,
the current buzzword is groomer, isn't it?
Yeah, channel punching bag.
Yeah, but the channel punching bag has actually written a book where she made her bad character legitimately a trans person who was going out her way to kill people, and portrayed in an absolutely transphobic way.
Like
and then for her follow-up novel, wrote a novel about how
disabled activists,
character, how online people picked on an author. That's like what?
Yeah,
basically,
I feel like one of her more recent, her murdering one, I think, was it is what people assume Silence of the Lamb is.
Yes. Pretty much.
That's it. What Rowling wrote, what she wrote, is what people assume Silence of the Lamb is if they've not read or seen it. And that's why I'm annoyed, because that 30 years of a lack of media literacy.
And there's still a lack of media literacy. I mean,
there will be long afterwards.
Which we are trying to alleviate in our own little way.
Yeah.
I will flat out, and I'm sure Chaos will agree with me, we get very little mandatory media literacy learning. Like, we have English class, but everything I know about media literacy and understanding media literacy, I learned in A-level literature, history degree, or advanced English literature GCSE. I didn't learn it as part of my bog standard education. It just wasn't there.
No, see, because I was in top set and my teacher was a gem. She taught me how to eviscerate a source within an inch of its life.
But
A, that was the extent of it, and B, none of the lower sets got that.
Yeah, and we were never encouraged to eviscerate fictional sources like that. Only historical sources, or only scientific sources.
I actually was, because my English teacher was very staunchly anti J.K. Rowling.
I mean, to be fair, we did the soliloquies of Iago in Othello for GCSE English Lit, and we spent 5 weeks on one soliloquy. Soliloquy.
Really?
I can't pronounce
Yeah,
that
soliloquy.
word. Yeah. Eviscerating it line by line, going to other Shakespeare plays to find points of comparison, to other contemporary works for points of comparison, to subsequent works to find points of comparison and callback. And by the end of it, she had, like, you could tell who were the advanced students and who weren't in my class. Because by the end of it, the ones who were advanced understood how to eviscerate a source, and the ones who weren't were convinced Shakespeare was a racist. Which, look at the era he lived in.
Yeah, of course he was a racist.
Crikey.
By our terms.
I mean, Jesus, has anybody read The Tempest? And if you know the backstory around that, for goodness sake,
Taliban, yeah.
And that was his lot. Yeah, there's actually a very good show by a comedian called Rob Newman that was done. It's about 20 years old now, but it was called From Caliban to Taliban: The History of Humanitarian Intervention.
Ooh, I need to dig that out. That sounds fun.
So, but
yeah, Shakespeare was a racist. But if that's all they took from 5 weeks of eviscerating one soliloquy, they didn't take what they were meant to take.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, that was my point on that. Now I do have other notes.
So
don't mind me with my ledger.
Okay.
There are. So. My take on my take on Buffalo Bill.
Go on.
He's trying to, own his victims by stealing their power.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, it's very ritualized.
Mm-hmm.
Even to the point of taking the cocoon, which of course is metaphorical for transformation in most
The chrysalis.
Yeah. And, inserting it into the mouth of his victims. And I think his now this could just be me having read too much Stephen King. I think his mother was probably very overbearing and assertive, and he's trying
No,
to...
that's you having read too much pop psychology from the 80s.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, that's me having
So let's say
read
too much Stephen King, yeah.
Yeah, that's very Freudian, is that reading?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I see what you're getting at. He's got that.
But it is very shamanic and ritualized if you look at what he's doing. Like, he's even breeding the moths for the chrysalises.
Yeah. Only because you can't get them in America, to be fair. I think that's more of a practicality than any.
Well, and I mean, what he specifically goes for a species of moth that's called the death's head moth. Like, there are easier butterflies or moths to get a hold of if you're going to breed moths for chrysalises.
Yeah.
I believe it's actually called Death's Head's hawk moth. I think it's one.
Okay, I want to take us on a slight tangent.
Where's Bree when we need her?
Yeah. I want to talk about Thomas Harris, who obviously wrote the books. Now, Thomas Harris is described by his friends and associates as a large man who enjoyed gourmet cooking, had very old world manners, and very, very kind, very bright man, sort of Brian Blessed with an American accent, basically.
See, so Brian Blessed does work as Hannibal then.
Yeah, because you can see where Thomas Harris, bits of Thomas Harris ended up.
I believe he came up from a rich family in Tennessee, I believe.
Yeah,
came from, didn't he?
he's from the South in America, and he got the idea for Hannibal from interviewing death row inmates. So he's a
dedication to
journalist.
research.
Yeah, no, he was a journalist, and he got the idea when he was a journalist. So it's one of those things where, especially with Buffalo Bill, you kind of writers always put something of themselves into a story.
Yeah,
we all do it. You write what you know. I don't think Hannibal Lecter would have been a gourmet chef if Thomas Harris hadn't been so interested in gourmet cooking.
Yeah.
Just as Thomas Harris and his southern manners, which even in the UK we've heard of southern belles and their manners and their, all this.
Southern hospitality is quite famous.
Oh yeah. So if you take that concept of southern hospitality, do you suddenly understand Hannibal Lecter's motivations a bit more? What he does and doesn't deem rude, what he does and doesn't deem worthy of disdain.
I mean, I actually do feel, in a sense, so this is Thomas Harris, he might be a little bit of an exception to the rule we talked about last week about writing characters that are far more clever than yourself. Generally not a very good idea, but I think Thomas Harris might be one of the exceptions to the rule here.
I think Thomas Harris is cleverer than Hannibal Lecter. That's why I think it works. Because Thomas Harris knows something that Hannibal Lecter doesn't. Thomas Harris knows that Hannibal Lecter is a caricature and an archetype. And he's a lot... Thomas... Like, you can't write a character like Hannibal Lecter and not have him be... Like, if you read the book, the books are very... It's very simple language that he uses. But the way he has Lecter talk, like the way Lecter talks in the books, it's elevated and it's like reading conversations. It's like a spy movie. Every sentence has got 3 meanings when Lecter speaks.
Yeah.
And that comes... I think they did that pretty well in the film for what they had. It's an anagram. He hammed it up to tell me to go here or there or whatever else.
Yeah.
But what the film does really well is it makes the audience feel clever.
Yeah.
And I think, again, this is something that comes across a lot in mystery films, detective films. The most important thing to do in genres like that is to make the audience feel clever. The audience have to get it before the characters do. Because that's what keeps them coming back. Because... people watch mysteries, yes, for the mystery, but also for the satisfaction of solving it.
Also, it's
like with Columbo. Like, we know who killed the person in Columbo. What we're watching is how does Columbo get there, and can we get there quicker than Columbo?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but let's be honest. Columbo knows who the killer is.
Exactly.
It's more Columbo. It's more of a... I know. It's like Columbo comes in. It's like, I know you fucking did it. I'm just going to work on.
Yeah, I'm just going to
prove you.
Yeah, I just need to make this stick in a court of law.
I know what you fucking did, but I need to make it stick legally.
Anyway, Ring, you were saying?
So to call back to an earlier episode of Media Musings, since you're talking on about mysteries and such, Silence of the Lambs did the dramatic switcheroo better than not only better than the one in the Da Vinci Code, but it did it twice.
Well, to be honest, to say Silence of the Lambs did anything better than the Da Vinci Code is not saying a lot.
Yeah, but I'm saying that the Silence of the Lambs beat the Da Vinci Code at something we praised the Da Vinci Code for, twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once good, twice better.
Well, because, we were talking about how clever the how well the soap scene was shot in the Da Vinci Code. And we got that twice in Silence of the Lambs. Once when Hannibal breaks out of the jail,
Yeah.
and then again when Clarice goes to the house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be fair, almost every scene in Silence of the Lambs is incredibly well shot.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
the cinematography
racist
and the music
overtones
is...
aside, and other issues that I have with some of the choices made, they are very well done, even though I don't think the choice is the right one.
Yeah, early 90s casual bigotry accepted, but not excused. This is a brilliantly shot movie.
Yeah.
Like it is. It's there's a reason it's a classic.
Yeah.
Like it's got everything, and it's intelligent, and it's not that as slow paced as you'd think it would be for a 30-year-old film either.
Yeah.
No.
You can
Like it didn't feel slow.
You can definitely separate sort of art from any themes when it comes to like cinematography, in the sense, because I mean, one of the best shot movies in early cinema for the time it was made in, probably one of the is a cinematic, like in terms of cinematography, it was a landmark movie, was Birth of a Nation. Also happens to
I
be
knew you were going to say that.
But also happens to be like the most fucking disgustingly racist movie ever made.
Like,
yeah.
So
speaking of early 90s bigotry, can we talk about the fat phobia? I would like to point out, size 14 is not fat.
Yeah.
Size 14 in the UK is size 60, because American sizes are one size different to
Yeah,
UK.
that's my size.
But that's not fat. That's normal sized.
Yeah.
Like, and
yeah,
this whole
but
she was a
Americans
big
seem
girl,
to think
it's just-
everyone. Oddly enough, Americans think every woman should be an 8, but the majority of Americans is like 26.
Yeah, the average sized American woman is a size 22.
22, yeah.
Well, to quote the American comedian Bill Hicks, says, why is it in America all these people, like when they like lunatics, they snap when they start thinking they're Jesus and they never think they're Buddha, especially in America when more people resemble the Buddha than Jesus.
No, because there's also, tell me you know nothing about women's clothing without telling me you know nothing about women's clothing. You think a man can guess a woman's size just from looking at her? A woman can't guess a woman's size when she knows her size.
Yeah, that's like
This is brought to you by trying to shop for clothes.
This is one of the reasons men tend to fuck up buying women clothes a lot of the time, because they're like, well, we didn't ask them the woman her size, because it could be being very rude and offensive. Then we go and buy something that we think might be the right size.
I honestly don't think any men should be ashamed by that, because as Sissy said, most women don't get other women's sizes at all, because we're all different body shapes. The number of times I've had girlfriends go, "Oh, I've got this old top of mine. I bought it last season. Would you like it? It should be your size.
Yeah,
we're about the same size.
I will
massively too big or incredibly too small."
I won't say who for. I will not say who for, but I did buy. I had bought a t-shirt for somebody in my life. Okay, and I did ask what's her t-shirt size, like large women's or whatever. Got the particular t-shirt as a present. It was like 4 sizes too fucking small.
Yeah,
because it depends. Where it was
I will
made.
put out. Look, I'm going to preempt what I'm about to say with "I'm fat and I know it." I have clothes. The clothes I am wearing, the top I am wearing, is a size 20. The trousers I am wearing are size 16. I have another top over there that I was wearing yesterday. That is a size 26 and is tight on me. My coat is a size 24 and is tight.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I can buy underwear from anywhere from size 16 to size 24 and it'll fit. So women's clothes sizes, just no.
See, it's really weird.
We need to go back to just inches. Like,
Yeah.
and don't get me started on vanity sizing. Just
Oh yeah.
No, I've seen.
Oh, you want to go back to Imperial, you Tory?
No, I'm not Tory. I'm Northern.
It would be just nice if there was some form of standardization.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Even if
Because
I have to say
Imperial.
this size, this type of cut, that would be fine.
See, I
Because
vary
we're
in
not all the
size.
same size up top. We're not all exactly the same shape, and that means that depending on the cut of the item, you have to buy a different size, and so you have to try everything on. Guys complain that women have to try everything on, but you fucking do. You've got no choice.
I own 2 different bras in the
By the way,
same size.
guys lied
the
for their
same-
ass when they said they don't
I
try
own
stuff
2
on.
different bras, same color, same style from 2 different shops. They are 4 sizes apart.
Chaos was going to say something.
Yeah. See, I fit, depending on where I buy it from, I fit in tops anywhere from a 12 to an 18, but I'm usually a 16.
Yeah. No, you're not.
Most of the
size
tops
16,
that I buy
I'm
are
weight size, though.
because
Most of the tops I buy end up having to be 16s because the 14s don't fit me.
size 16's got a lot smaller since I was size 16.
I honestly think all
trouble
clothes
is,
sizes
trouble
have
is
got
chaos. You look gorgeous in whatever you're in, so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter to you, you know.
And that side
Yeah.
of shame, that all aside, the whole concept of fat shaming is just fucking ridiculous because there's not just the reason that you might eat more that you might be bigger. That is just bullshit.
That's
because
bollocks.
Also,
different
I'll
people
point
have
out there's
different
no
metabolisms.
fucking way. There is no fucking way that Senator's daughter was a size 16 UK, size 14. No fucking
No,
way.
not a chance.
Size 18, 20, maybe. But she's not a size 14. Nah.
Yeah.
Like,
No chance she's wearing smaller
even if the
tops than
camera
me.
adds £5, it doesn't account for that. No. I just no. So talking about that, I want to talk also about because we talked about the fat phobia. There was another thing I wanted to talk about. Where is it? The academic elitism in this film.
So much of it.
And don't listen to him. He's not a PhD.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that the more respectful one was the one with the PhD. Really?
Yeah.
You've clearly never met a PhD, have you? Yes, it doesn't happen.
Well, that does depend on
higher and deeper. That's what that means.
No, the one with the PhD was the one hitting on her, and he said, "Don't listen to the other one. He's not a PhD."
Oh, I thought he.
And yet the other one was the one doing the practical work.
Yeah, I thought Chaos was referring to Hannibal as the one with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Hannibal's a special case. We've established this. Yeah. Also, in my mind, Anthony Hopkins is Lecter, but Mads Mikkelsen is Hannibal. Do with that what you will. That annoyed me because the whole academic snobbery, but also that again is a symptom of the wider bigotry in this film and of the 90s, of hierarchies and sexism and power plays and office politics and all.
To be fair, that all still exists in academia.
Yes, it does.
Well, also,
it
especially
really
the
does.
sexism.
Also, to be fair, this movie is a movie about power.
Yeah. It is first and foremost a movie about power. It's not about sex. It's not about sexuality. It's not about gender. It's about power.
It's not even about murder.
Serial killings are.
No, I mean, like every character interaction is
a power play.
Is about who has power over, you know, who.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much so. And we know pretty much it's it's like it seems to be. I mean, it's almost like they're, even though they never actually meet in the film, it's almost like there's a struggle going on between Crawford and Lecter over as to who has power over Clarice.
And Clarice is trying to claw her way up to something resembling some power in what is, you know, a man's world.
It's very much like, do you know what it is? You know that movie of the X-Men where you've got Professor X and Magneto playing chess?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's Jack Crawford and Hannibal Lecter, and she's the chessboard. And like everyone else are the chess pieces. Like that's what this movie is fundamentally. Like everyone's being pushed around. Like you find out that Lecter's former patients are involved in this, and like there's the insinuation that Lecter pushed his patient to behave like that, and it's, you know, and the way Lecter can manipulate people into swallowing their own tongues and all sorts. It's just it is all about power, but it is a really intricate chess game they're playing. The problem is one of them's playing checkers.
Yeah. And then you've got, you know, the dipshit who's trying to play tic-tac-toe without realizing that no one wins in tic-tac-toe.
Chilton. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I still think that Chilton should at least have been shared with Clarice at the end. For dinner.
Yeah, but Clarice.
Okay, if you ever read the book Hannibal, Chaos, it's not Chilton, but somebody else who's an asshole in this franchise. So they do kind of, but and I think he's only alluded to once in this particular film, but Krendler. But he's more of a character in the book in Hannibal than Silence of the Lambs. But and even then, there's massive differences between the film and the book as to what happens at the end of that with that.
Yeah. But again, the reason I picked this film is because it's about as accurate to the book as a film gets.
Yeah. It pretty much
it hits all the right beats. There's no major bit of the book that I read and looked at and went, I wish that was in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
that should have been in the film when it wasn't.
I mean, literally, when I read the book, I will say this: I watched the film first, then I did read the book, and literally, like the most significant differences I could pick up were little just quotation things where, you know,
and
I forget, like for example, I forget the name of the wine Hannibal said he drank, but it wasn't in the book. It wasn't the Chianti.
It wasn't Chianti. No.
It was something else. I forget. But those were like the most, you know, those were the kind of differences I noticed. Nothing like really, really significant.
Yeah, nothing plot relevant. Like,
which is unusual for a film conversion.
So
especially an earlier one like this.
And if you read the follow-up, Hannibal is a totally different thing altogether because the ending is remarkably different from the book.
Or to compare with a movie that actually does have a link between, does have a surprising link to Silence of the Lambs, is there's no Tom Bombadil issue with Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
And for those who aren't aware, Howard Shore did the score for Silence of the Lambs and then went on to become more famous for doing the scoring for the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I will say the score is, again, bigotry accepted.
Yeah.
Commented on, now laid aside as having been dealt with. The scoring in this movie is brilliant.
Yeah.
And the use of the Goldberg variations, like, I know that's from the book, but that's just... does anyone else... The Goldberg variations are in G major. They're bright, they're dynamic. They go on for 80 minutes. And that's the aria of the Goldberg variation. So it's the first, 10 minutes of it. You can go listen to it. It's on YouTube. I know, I checked beforehand. But, it's... I happen to... Look, I like classical music. But to set a grisly murder like that to the area of the Goldberg variations, which is in G major, and it's the whole thing. The reason musicians like the Goldberg variations, I don't know if anyone's ever tried to play them, they're very controlled, they're dynamic and they're bright, but you have to have so much musical control because there's points where your hands cross over on the keyboard, and again, in 80 minutes, anyone who can play piano for 80 minutes, you're doing something right. You've got to have some level of self-control, if only of your bladder for that long.
Yeah.
And it's really, that's a stroke of genius, putting that piece of music to Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
Because if you wanted to describe Hannibal Lecter in music, you'd go to the Goldberg variations. It's long, it's dynamic, it's a little bit repetitive, but it's also complex and beautiful and calm.
And normally, if you were going to do something like a serial killer or someone like that, you go to a minor key, so you bring out the sinister for it. But no, you by sticking to a major key.
This is where you learn. Yeah, Hannibal Lecter loves what he does. He takes joy in it. He finds beauty in these killings. And in a weird way, and again, no one send anyone after me. I promise I'm not going to hurt anyone. But in a weird way, from an artistic viewpoint, there's almost virtue in that. And again, from an artistic viewpoint of a fictional character.
Yeah.
If a real serial killer was killing to night fever or something, I'd have a problem. But we're talking about a fictional character.
Yeah.
I feel...
So how do people think if they injected the Benny Hill theme into it?
I honestly don't think it would have made all that much difference tonally.
I don't actually think it would, And I think
now I've got a mental image of Brian Blessed as Hannibal Lecter to the Benny.
I was just thinking the theme tune that must constantly be playing in Boris Johnson's head is the Benny Hill theme, isn't it?
You think he's clever enough to remember the entire Benny Hill theme?
Though,
no, he's probably just the main bit looped around and around and around.
Though,
I think... Sorry, Ring.
Speaking about art, it was interesting the way he left that guard for the cops to discover.
Yeah. Vitruvian Man.
This is another Da Vinci Code callback.
No, sorry, not Vitruvian Man.
Crucifixion.
Man.
Yeah. And I think that something about...
he's in a crucifixion pose.
Oh, yeah, no, the guy on the tableau. Yeah, tableau. That's a crucifixion. And he's crucified on the colours of the American flag, and he's a cop. That's an image for our time.
Yeah.
Can we take a moment to just absorb and be grateful that image exists in a post BLM world?
Yeah.
I did have to check when the film was made when I saw that.
And there is okay, I've finished.
I think that something that I've something that I noticed that I don't know if it was me reading too much into it or not, but Buffalo Bill almost feels like he's trying to be what Hannibal is.
Yeah.
Mm.
And in a weird way, it almost feels like Chilton's trying to be what Hannibal is. Like he's trying to be this suave, in control. Like he's trying to be the man who cracked Hannibal Lecter.
Mm.
Like you see the way he's smarmy with the press. My name is Dr. Frederick Chilton. Like that's what he wants out there.
Yeah.
But and that's the thing with Lecter, it's effortless. It's just who he is. The man draws amazing images of Florence. Like,
and
if
yeah,
you can draw that well, you need to go to art school. Like,
and I'm
and that drawing of Clarice is the Virgin Mary holding the lamb.
Yeah.
But and I was to say and we get more of this in the sequel, the sequel book Hannibal, and maybe there is a taste for that sort of dramatic scene because he comes up against in that particular book. He comes up. He's actually in. He's you mentioned Florence. He actually hides in Florence after he escapes it. He sets up a life for himself in Florence, and it turns out that one of the guys who's looking for him is a descendant of the Pazzi family.
Yes.
And he in Hannibal, the Pazzis are a real Florentine family. They're
they also have their name expunged from the records.
Yeah, massive.
The Medici.
Yeah, they had a massive feud with the Medici family, and but there was after the attempted massacre on Easter Day.
Can I cut in?
Go Noodle. Yeah, go Noodle.
I would like to clarify what you mean by what did you call it? A massive feud with the Medici. They tried to murder the Medici brothers at mass on Easter Sunday.
Yes.
That's not a massive feud. That's a fucking war.
That was but what happens? Obviously, one of the Pazzi, because the Pazzi family just pissed everyone off in the city for doing that. Even people who didn't like the Medicis were like, "No, you don't fucking do something on church on Easter Sunday."
In Italy. And the Medici were the papal bankers.
Yeah,
they were the bankers to the Pope.
Exactly. And it was I forget
so many layers.
It was I forget the name. Was it Giuliano was the one who died? Lorenzo was the one who survived.
Giuliano was killed. Lorenzo survived.
Lorenzo the Magnificent was the one who survived.
Yes, Lorenzo the Magnificent.
But I forget which one of the Pazzi family it was. It was hung out of that window with his but gutted at the same time. Hannibal reenacts this with a descendant of the Pazzi family who would happen to come after him in one of these books. And Hannibal's got that little sense of theatre there, and
he has, and that's done again in the TV show Hannibal, where Hannibal's in Florence, because there's a beautiful moment where they've lived in Florence about 6 months, and the woman who's with Hannibal, Bedelia, who's basically the stand-in for Clarice because they didn't have the rights to Clarice, in this part of it anyway. He says to her, he basically asks her, "How do you not know who the Pazzi are?" Because he says Pazzi and she says who, and he's like Pazzi. But the Pazzi, Jacopo was hung from the thing, and it's very famously there's different artistic depictions of the man, and the different artistic depictions are, you can get wood carvings of the hanging, and it's bowels in or bowels out, and it's exactly what you're thinking. Like, did they cut open his guts first or not?
Yeah.
And in the TV show, Hannibal throws the guy, like, literally says to the guy right before he kills him, bowels in or bowels out, what do we think? Bowels out, I think. And then throws him out the window after cutting his gut open. and you'd see the body drop, and from the gravity, the intestines drop out of the body, and you see them hanging out of the body on the TV show. I'm not selling it if you don't like gore, but watch it; it's really good.
Yeah.
But
Now,
no, and it's a really good callback to the history of Florence. You could not do that in any other city but Florence, and that's beautifully done.
Now another thing about another interesting little detail is technically, I believe the name was Greeley, but like Mr. Greeley got a military burial. The head in the jar.
Technically, because he was buried under a flag.
Yep.
Yeah, I noticed that. What did anyone like the American flags all over this movie?
Yeah.
Like covering the car. But did you notice the American flags only ever appeared in scenes where there was death? Now you've seen it, you cannot unsee it. The American flags only ever covered up like the darkness or the evil thing or the head in a jar or the corpse, or they only happened in really gory scenes with the American flag there. And now you cannot unsee that, and I am not going to comment any further because I've got a green card application pending.
That's a rather spicy narrative choice of them.
Yes, very spicy.
Could we talk about the similarities between Clarice and Hannibal and the Joker and Harley?
I want to talk about the similarities between Clarice and Hannibal because I also want to discuss the lamb.
Yeah.
This is what, I said right early on in this stream. I said Thomas Harris clearly reads his own work and understands his own work. Yeah. Unlike some authors we could mention.
Hold on.
Come on, Ring, hurry up. Yes, clearly reads his own work, understands his own work, and is able to integrate a backstory properly with his existing texts.
Yeah, and not just give lip service to ideas.
That lamb. Yeah. The story she tells about that lamb is basically Misha trying to survive on your own to protect the lamb from being slaughtered and eaten, but then being too young and too weak to protect it, it gets taken away and you get taken off to an orphanage. That's Hannibal Rising. That's the plot of Hannibal Rising.
Yeah.
Like, the only difference is it was his baby sister and not an actual lamb.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. I looked at that and I was like, Thomas Harris, dude. You know how to, yeah. Like, if you're going to write a backstory to your characters, which you didn't really want to write in the first place, and that's how to do it. Like, that's how you make it gel with what you already have written down and published. What you don't do is go on Twitter and tweet about how your characters didn't have toilets.
Damn it, I just put it down.
Or say that your character's gay and then never reference it at all in any of the media.
Yeah. Oh, that was I just wanted to point and go, that's Misha, it's Misha. I have no further analysis to offer on that because my brain shut down when I saw that because I was like, holy shit, Thomas Harris, you're a genius. Because how did you those were written 25 years apart. Like,
how old is the Book of Silence of the Lamb?
88, I think we said, didn't we?
88.
So it's post them developing Harley Quinn in DC.
No, it's pre.
It's pre Harley. So
because
that's the way around I thought it would be because it seems so much like DC have drawn on the ideas of Silence of the Lambs to develop the Harley Quinn joke.
Well, wow.
Hannibal Rising was 2006 as well.
Hold on.
So he clearly went back and read his own work again.
Yeah, like clearly he understood his own assignment.
Yes. Like, he was given an assignment he didn't want to do, and he still smashed it. Like, a lot of people really pan that book. And, yeah, is it a cliche that it's all Hitler's fault that the cannibal kills and eats people? Yeah. But it's really well done for what it is.
So, okay. So, Silence of the Lambs came out in on February 14th, 1991.
The movie did, but when was the book?
The movie. Well, in 1988. Okay,
1988 is a sequel to the 1981 Red Dragon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, Harley Quinn was created for Batman the Animated Series and first appeared in the 22nd episode which first aired on September 11th, 1992.
Yeah. You can see that they obviously drew ideas from.
Now, I don't think her, Harleen Quinzel's backstory had been.
That wasn't fully padded out. The only thing they said about her was that she had been a.
The thing is, Harley Quinn only first was created for the show just so the Joker could have a hench person he could bounce off of.
Yeah.
And then she clicked and got more fleshed out as the series progressed.
Yeah.
And you can certainly see the parallels there, that obviously there was inspiration dragged from the characters of Clarice and Hannibal to...
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, not exactly saying cannibal's not...
I think...
the joke is not a cannibal, but you're still
Let's be honest, if you get a couple if you get a fucked up, evil, villainous couple who have some really weird kinks, you're going to get comparisons to Hannibal Lecter and Clarice and also to Joker and Harley. They are the archetypes.
They are the characters, yeah.
They are the trope namers. But I will say as well, if you have to, and I will give this warning, which I should have really given early on, to anyone who's planning on reading the book Hannibal, which is the sequel to this. You cannot go in there with a view to kink shame. Because the guy's kinky. Really kinky. Uncomfortably kinky.
And
no, I mean, there's bits in the book of Hannibal, which I've seen extracts of, where he has Clarice role playing as Misha, and she pours wine down her breasts, and he sucks it off her breasts as if she's lactating. He's kinky.
Yeah.
He's really kinky. So just warning, if that shit makes you uncomfortable, skip the book.
Yeah.
I'd rather you skip the book than become an auntie, because we don't kink shame here. We just kink ask why, and there's a lot of why in that description. There's a lot of why. We just. I feel like again, kink asking why. There are several essays to be written on that why. But yeah, just avoid it if that concerns you or if you have problems with that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. See, I was about to go, that sounds pretty mild, but then I remember that was not a warning for me.
That was not a warning for you, Chaos. That was a warning for the normies who may come across this later.
Yeah.
No, I tell you who that was a warning for. That was a warning for the people who keep going to find the pro ship stream I did with the Hannibal fandom and commenting on it things like ew and anti-BS. That's a warning for you people to skip it.
Oh wow, that's still getting engagement.
Yes, there are Hannibal antis, and they're still engaging with that video, and I don't know why. Go away. It was over.
Fictional character.
Well, I mean, it's algorithm traction. Not that you'll ever use it, but it's algorithm traction.
Yeah. I genuinely got a comment on it yesterday that was just ew.
Right. I'm going to correct you. That was a warning for me. Unfortunately, it came like 6 years too late.
Okay, so rather than kink shaming, we're going to give Scummer the opportunity to kink ask why.
I don't think I want to. I know why. That's the problem. I'm too fucking bland about this stuff.
You're the only one who's blushing right now.
Except when you've had quite a bit to drink and you're very drunk on a stream with other people who have no shame.
Yeah, so what we should have what we should have done is got Scummer a nice Chianti before we started.
I don't know what you're talking about, Jen.
That was such a fun stream.
Yeah, okay, that was yeah.
Also, there's one shot, and it's completely unrelated, but as we've devolved into like just memifying this fandom, when Chilton's in the thing and they're getting that they're about to Chilton puts his pen down, and the way Hannibal looked at the pen, I couldn't help it. I genuinely thought he was going to John Wick Chilton. I genuinely thought like Chilton and two coppers, it's three guys with a fucking pen. Like that's how this shit's gonna go down.
Yeah, he was probably you could see he was considering it.
Yeah, but like, all he did was steal the thing so he could pick the lock instead. Like,
well, I have I know we've covered John Wick before, but I do have a little fan theory about that, and it was it was an alternative reality where Ted Theodore Logan actually got sent to military school and then reinvented himself as John Wick as a kid. But
yeah, that'll do it. Okay, what else do we need to talk about?
You could always have the fair fiction that John Wick takes place in the Matrix.
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. Do we feel like we've sufficiently covered Hannibal's different responses to the different cops he interacts with?
Hannibal says ACAB.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing, and it's gotten into a little bit more in the book. This is mentioned, like with the cops that deal with him when he's transferred and put in the cell there when then Chilton puts that deal on. So, look, Barney's the guy who kind of goes to Chilton and says, like, hey, shouldn't we go along? Shouldn't we be in charge of the security for Hannibal because we kind of know what to do with this guy? Chilton is like, no, you're all right, Barney. And because Barney fucking knows that if you don't if you drop your guard for a fucking second with this guy and are not,
you're dead. And
you are fucked. And Barney knows that, and he's trying to say to Chilton, look, we kind of know the precautions we have to take with Hannibal. We've been doing this for like 10 years. Shouldn't we go along, or shouldn't I at least oversee the security or something? And
you get the impression that Chilton wants him to escape.
But Chilton's like dismissive of the whole bloody thing, and like
no, I don't think Chilton wants him to escape. I think he's just too stupid and high off his face.
He's too fucking arrogant to
Yeah. And that's something I think Chilton translates across all the different versions of him. Chilton's just a dick.
Also,
Chilton is just
Also, you definitely obviously he leaves the country the second he learns that Hannibal escaped.
Okay, I'm going to be very me for a moment. And I'm going to say one thing about Chilton. In the TV show, the man writes with a Mont Blanc fountain pen. Nope.
Who writes with a fountain pen?
Hannibal writes with a St. DuPont, a Deathie, limited edition, palladium and black.
But who writes with a fountain pen?
Me?
Noodle writes with a fountain pen.
This is how I know. Suffice to say that Mont Blanc is the Ferrari of fountain pens, in the way that only pricks who want a Ferrari would buy a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Like, that translates.
I love that analogy.
Well, they're more like the Alfa Romeo of fountain pens, because they're always failing and breaking down and leaking. But less said about that, the better. I think King Charles said that best, didn't he? Fuck that pen, it's leaked. It's always leaking.
They look nice and very sleek or whatever, but they always break. Basically, they're fucking Ducatis.
Yes. in motorbike parlance, yes.
Yeah.
No, they're Vespers. They're Vespers or Lambrettis.
I think the Ducati reference works better personally, but
yeah, but I'm a scooter rider. You're a motorbiker, so different strokes. Yeah. You're 4-stroke empty. I'm 4-stroke empty. Yeah. Anyway, there was that. Clarice is a bad cop. Yeah. And I'm going to come back to this. She's just a bad cop. She does an entire investigation with her hair down. Would the other people with long hair who may or may not have had to consider their personal safety like to explain that?
I did.
I'm not a cop. Everyone in this, by the way, you do realize everyone in this stream's got long hair.
Yeah.
Yes, but you and Ring 6'3", and who's going to argue with Ring? I don't argue with Ring.
Well, yeah, but that's because you tell me and I say
that's because Ring doesn't argue with you. That's why. No one in their fucking right mind argues with you.
No, I know what you're saying.
I will take that as a compliment, but you know what I mean.
I know what you're saying, Hissy. Noodle. It's it's very much a case of you got to be careful where you are and when you can have your hair down and not.
Yeah,
to be fair, I mostly have my hair down.
She walks into a suspect. She rabbits. She jumps on him. If she'd have kept her cool another 5 minutes, she could have walked out of that house scot-free. The police could have burst in there 5 minutes later and taken the lot, and no harm done to anyone.
One of the things I did like about with the whole thing when she's in the whole thing with Buffalo Bill is that when she finds Catherine Martin. And the way Catherine,
don't leave me down here, you bitch.
Yeah. It's like you like it's always like it's all right, you're safe, and do I fucking look safe? You know,
It's like that character is all of us. Like that's exactly how you would react if a copper walked into a place you were being held prisoner and told you were safe while you were at the bottom of a well.
Now bringing up Catherine Martin, we now get into othering.
Yeah. There's
first you get Senator Martin's address to the public, humanizing her daughter or trying to humanize her daughter to the killer.
Yeah.
And then we get the famous scene. Hold on. There's a comment.
There was a comment there.
Would you fuck me? I'd fuck me.
Nope.
No. Native atheist in the beginning.
It puts lotion on the skin until she begs and pleads with him and pushes him to recognize she's human.
It's like that.
And then he curses that
lotion. Yeah.
So there is this very conscious othering that he does.
Yeah.
Which tells me that the way he murders these women is not necessarily to murder them.
Yeah.
Which obviously, but I think it's a point worth making that this guy, whatever was wrong with him, and it was no little thing. Let's put that out there. The girls being killed was a consequence of what he was doing, but I don't think it was necessarily his goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, the death wasn't the point. The getting their skin was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
The death was a natural.
Think about that next time you buy leather shoes.
I mean, in a lot of ways, this is a sort of thing with serial killers, though, that it's the killing itself may not necessarily be the thrill or the need that's being satisfied. It's what they do with the person whilst they're in that person's power and what they're trying to get from that person, rather than the actual act of killing itself.
Now, I'm putting this down as a possible teaser for March, because March is the month where we just do what I want because it's my birthday month and this is my show.
Yeah, we gotta allow you 1 month in the year to do what you want to do on your own channel.
But the Sandman has a very good arc in the second half of the season. Yeah. That does go into serial killers.
Do you think Hannibal? Right, I do think this. If we could merge these two, universes and have Hannibal as the guest of honor at the convention, I think it would be awesome.
I'll let you guys nerd out for a second because I don't understand that.
Okay, I'll just say this. Okay, there's a story arc in Sandman, but there is the serial killers convention.
Yeah.
Basically, the serial killers get together like their version of Comic-Con.
Yeah. Okay, can I point something out? Can I point something out? Hannibal Lecter is a doctor, a psychiatrist, and an academic. Do you really think he hasn't been to psychiatric conventions? I give you the trope of the serial killing psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And it is a trope. Most psychiatrists are lovely and psychologists are lovely. Don't be afraid of them. But yeah, they're not gonna cut you up for annoying.
Mild spoilers for Sandman, but yeah, the second half of the first season has an arc about a serial killer convention.
How would you advertise that? Serial killers wanted.
They advertised it as serial convention, and for some reason, the hotel thought these were like nerds about breakfast cereals.
Yeah, I was going to say, did Old Man Kellogg show up? But yeah, I think that's most of my commentary on this movie. I do love that she told him he could go on holiday to Anthrax Island. And also, just FYI, it takes more than 3 days for your skin to get loose if you've not eaten. Just FYI. Yeah. But again, early 90s fat phobia. Let's go.
And the lotion wouldn't make any difference anyway.
Also,
it makes very little difference.
Also, you could once again, symbology.
And it's not really like your skin gets loose. Your skin.
It kind of does.
Yeah,
Having
but
lost
only
quite
because
a lot of weight recently, it does.
Only because your skin is really stretchy and it takes a long time for it to come back, and it doesn't always come back all the way, depending on how much weight you've lost. But even if you lose weight, the skin's still. Yeah, it's not really.
It's still
loose
attached to you. It's not loose.
It's still attached to you. It's not loose.
It's excessive.
It's not
loose.
Works.
There's a difference. Yeah.
But then again, that's not meant to be a realistic medical thing. That's just this guy being a complete nut job and thinking that's how it works.
Absolutely. Point of order. Absolutely. None of this is valid psychiatry, psychology, medical, or police information.
Oh, yeah.
In this movie. This movie is utterly farcical and fantastic, and should have been set in a world with like fairies and dragons, because that would be more believable. It's about as believable as frigging dragons and fairies. So, you know, I've just realised the double entendre of fairies, but I'm not going there because no.
I feel like that would actually fit really well, though, because you could have Hannibal be some sort of fake creature who can whisper and get into people's minds.
I mean, isn't he basically a vampire? Like he requires manners to be invited in, but once he's in, he doesn't really care. He's old world. He's got a funny accent, or he's supposed to have. He's basically an American vampire. Yeah,
he's from Eastern
Transylvania,
Europe,
Lithuania. Yeah. What do Americans know the difference? Americans don't know where Transylvania and Lithuania are because they've never invaded those two countries.
I'd never thought about the parallelism between him and a vampire or a ghoul even. It is very much, yeah.
Well, war was invented to teach Americans geography.
Yeah. That's the joke, isn't it? How do you teach Americans where a country is? You let America invade.
I think that was a Mark Twain. I couldn't swear to it. I think something Mark Twain's once said, but I couldn't swear to it being a Mark Twain quote. But
I mean, even when the Americans try to teach it like in Animaniacs, they still get it wrong. So
the United States, Canada, Mexico,
yeah, but it's wrong. Even at the time when it was made, it was wrong.
Yeah, it was out of date. Yeah,
it was not only out of date. Some of the places they listed as countries weren't countries; they were either cities or provinces, and they missed about 20 countries off the list that did exist at the time. So
yes, but rhyming scheme.
That's all right. This is all right. Look, I can't with this. Just to put this in context, because I feel that we're kind of bashing on Ring as the only American in the stream right now. But
don't worry, they're used to it.
Put this in context, To put this in context, I did hear a British person refer to Africa as a country the other day, and argue it. So so we can't absolve ourselves entirely on this front.
No.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
I saw a British person type on Twitter today that a woman is the one who carries the eggs. So yeah.
Then go supermarket, grab me 6 eggs, some flour, and some milk. I want to make a cake.
Right, that's all right. I posted a picture of a chicken and wrote "woman" underneath it.
Well, you know the old.
That's brilliant.
Well, you know the old joke, don't you? It was a chicken and an egg lying in bed together. The chicken lights up a cigarette, goes.
Well, now we know the answer to that old question.
Yeah. Well, that sorted that question out, didn't it?
Yeah.
I think we've sidetracked so far that we've probably got to the end of what we can talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've definitely got to the end of things we can talk about.
Do we need to sum up then?
No, we were talking about othering, and we were talking about how he deliberately. But this entire movie, everyone is othered by other people to some extent. Yeah. Clarice is the only woman in a male-dominated environment. Lecter is a perfect psychopath, whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah.
You know, Chilton is obviously an outsider trying desperately to fit in and gain fame and notoriety.
Yeah.
Like, Barney is the only speaking black character, and we are definitely geared towards being afraid of him.
And which is so sad in the film when you say that, because Barney is probably the nicest character in.
Like, Barney's the mental health nurse you want.
Yeah. I mean, okay, there's some things you could say in the sequel, but you could argue, you could make some questionable things about his decisions in the sequel.
Who doesn't like a big pink?
But I don't think Barney's a nice cat. Barney is one of the nicest characters in this whole franchise.
Yeah, and he's one of the only genuinely nice guys.
Now I want to
not
re-edit
nice
parts
guys,
of the movie,
genuinely nice
actually
guys.
replacing Barney with Barney.
Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna stage the parody in which Brian Blessed plays Hannibal Lecter.
Yep.
Barney is Barney the dinosaur.
Oh, sorry.
The music is not Goldberg's Variations; it's the Benny Hill theme tune.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't know.
I'd like to present the
I don't know. Let's
I'd
cast Graham Norton as Dr. Chilton or something. I don't know.
I feel
No,
like
Terry Wogan.
the remaining cast should instead be the Muppets.
Yes,
The Muppet version of
yes, Silence of the Muppets.
The Muppet serial killer movie.
No,
Where the only
makes-
human character is
this
Hannibal
makes so
Lecter.
much more sense though.
played by
because
Brian
it
Blessed,
puts the
who
lotion-
plays it
It
completely
puts the
straight.
lotion on the skin, or else it.
I can just.
And you who do you have play Buffalo Bill? Because you have a human play Buffalo Bill, and Buffalo Bill's got Muppets in the thing, and he's skinning Muppets because he really wants to. He thinks he wants to be a puppet.
I just thought, well, maybe just for the visual of, just
I
for the
was
visual,
not really a
saying
puppet.
that's how I
however,
do.
just for the visual of
Sorry.
Miss Piggy and
In-
Hannibal
in the-
Lecter, and Miss Piggy going, "Hello!" to Hannibal.
Yeah,
No. See, Miss
And
Piggy's
you
in
can
the
have
well.
Janice in the pit, and when the ghost puts the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again, and then she goes,
Okay.
"For sure."
Okay. Okay, but just
Are you
imagine.
talking
just
to
imagine.
what?
Wait. Just imagine that line. It puts the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again. But said by Miss Piggy.
No, I actually picture Miss Piggy as Catherine in that situation. It puts the lotion on its skin. Are you talking to what?
Yes, absolutely yes.
Yeah.
But then, which Muppet would be Clarice?
The Beaker.
That's all right. You put Kermit in drag, and you call it Kermes.
Kirby.
Yeah, Hermes.
Gonzo would have to be Hannibal, though.
No.
No. Hannibal is played by Brian Blessed, who's playing the part totally straight.
Yeah.
I'm attached to that idea now. I want that
Tell
idea in
me
my life.
Don't forget, you never know.
Kirby's.
You never know. Someone in Disney might be watching this, so we might get a Muppet serial killer movie before we know it.
That would be incredible.
It would. It really would.
The Muppets of the Lambs.
The Silence of the Muppets.
The silence.
Oh no, because the Muppets actually had a whole heap of lambs. So all the victims in the pit are actually lambs, Muppet lambs. I know it makes no sense to the actual concept, but
I've come up with. I know who's going to play Clarice.
Who?
Barb the sheep. Barb the sheep
Yeah. Okay.
from Muppets in Space. Barb the sheep.
Excellent.
Okay. Do you think we've really? You think we're really trying to?
We're scraping the barrel. At this point.
Can I say? Do you think
Yeah.
we may have been keeping this stream going too long now that we've?
I think we need to wind it.
See, the thing is, I picked this film because I wanted to talk about othering and gender identity and expression. But that was before I watched this film.
Yeah.
And you can't have that discussion on the back of this film because this film does not lend itself to that.
Yeah.
No.
This film isn't about like
I mean, we
othering.
can talk about the reception of the film.
Which we did.
I
Which is
stand
a whole
by my
different
statement.
topic.
Yeah. I stand by my statement that media literacy in the English-speaking world is fucking ridiculous. Nate has put something up, and who wants to go on explaining that?
Okay, so there are two scenes that explain the title of the film. One where she tells where she's talking with Hannibal Lecter about the night she ran away from the Rancho Montana, when, because she could hear the lambs screaming. And then at the very end, when Hannibal calls her at her graduation, and the first thing he asks her is, have the lambs stopped screaming, Clarice? So it's basically it's a metaphor for Clarice trying to quiet her own personal trauma.
Yeah. And it's the point of, once the lambs are silenced, what do you do next? Because the silence is almost worse than the screaming. And that's the thing. The silence, the not knowing where Hannibal Lecter is worse than knowing that he's locked up in prison. That's the sort of, the esoteric thing. An unexpectedly cerebral film for a horror.
Yeah.
I was quite impressed.
Although probably part of that is on me, because I should have realized a film about Dr. Hannibal Lecter, a renowned psychiatrist who likes to fuck with people's heads, was going to be reasonably, it was going to be intelligently done. You can't do that stupidly.
To be frank, the bits of the film that creeped me out when I was a teenager weren't the bits about Buffalo Bill killing people and taking off their skin. It was Hannibal's discussions with Clarice.
Psychological thriller.
The psychological of it. Yeah. Well, it is. This is the thing. It's a sort of psychological thriller element to that. And yes, I would agree with that. It is the dialogues between Lecter and Clarice in this film that really, I think, make it. This is what makes this movie. That's what makes this movie.
This movie is a total mindfuck. It absolutely is. And there's never it's really funny, because even when Lecter is arguably at his lowest, when he's being duped, when he's being caught out, he's still the one completely in control of the situation.
And
this is why I made the comment about Professor X and Magneto playing chess. He's playing chess, and everyone else around him is playing fucking Monopoly.
Yeah.
Except for Chilton, who's playing tic-tac-toe.
Yeah.
And losing.
I'm not even sure that Chilton's playing Snakes and Ladders, quite frankly. But
that's the thing, though, isn't it? And it's whoops. For anyone who does know the Hannibal TV show, I have just realized after this entire stream and having said that there is a quote about how the reason in the Hannibal TV show Hannibal loves Will is because Hannibal was the only person who, like, the analogy given is he's the only person in the world who plays chess, and Will just walked into the room with a chessboard. And I've just realized that analogy's already been made.
I'd imagine Hannibal would be a hell of a Go player as well, So that's.
I want to see Hannibal Lecter play poker. That's what I want to see.
I'm pretty sure he'd eat a pretty good poker face.
Yeah. But he's just a very. I think the reason Hannibal Lecter's so appealing. And he's an appealing character. Even though he's a serial killer, he's compelling, and he's obviously insane to the layperson. Like, none of us are going to look at it and go, that man is sane and normal and reasonable. But there are elements of his behavior and elements of his pathology that we can look at and go, yeah, I could see myself thinking that. Like a normal. I say normal, like any of us are normal.
He's completely capable.
A non-serial killer looks at the people Hannibal Lecter kills and goes, yeah, I can see why he did that, and I can see why he did it in that way, and I can appreciate the irony and the humor.
And you said,
but I can't but I wouldn't do it. He does it, and he is the actor of those dark, almost fantasies.
I mean,
all human beings have that totally normal.
I mean, and one thing you said about being reasonable. I mean, Hannibal's very more than capable of reason. You must understand. And this is why I think this is, I guess, this is why he's such a compelling character. And now, I don't know whether it was Thomas Harris's intention from the beginning to sort of make Hannibal a character where we, I don't know, kind of privately want to root for, even though we know it's wrong, or whether that was just a consequence of the way he wrote it and how it evolved over time, where Hannibal essentially does kind of become a little bit of an anti-hero type of one. You kind of want to root for him. And like I said, go back to what I said earlier, because a lot of the people that he kills or does stuff to are people who fucking deserve it in a lot of cases.
I will flat out, and I'm not even admitting this, I'm just saying it. I was rooting for Hannibal in Hannibal Rising. And I thought he gave those guys exactly what they deserved, and then some.
Well, yeah, it was first of all, like, group of bloody.
He's killing Nazis.
He's killing Nazis who did most disgusting things to his own family. And in the movie, in the obviously the follow up to Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, the main villain, Mason Verger, is a
paedophile.
He's a fucking I was going to choose the words more careful, but okay.
No, just say it. He's vicious and he's twisted, and it's also hinted that he attempts to quote unquote correctively rape his lesbian sister.
Yeah.
Like, he's a nasty piece of work.
And I guess
so when Hannibal Lecter gets him, you look and you think.
And I guess in a way, this is one of the things about Hannibal when you sort of read into the character, like you know. Why Hannibal would consider someone like Mason Verger, to be someone he needs to fuck up is if there's one group of people Hannibal is not going to do anything to, it's a child.
Children, yeah.
He's got a very soft spot for children, and because of his own backgrounds and so on, as we find out in Hannibal Rising, he's got a very soft spot for children. He'd never hurt a child, and I guess that's the whole where is his moral compass at? We touched on that earlier.
It's like that. Was it the Doctor Who quote that said, and I'm sure Jen and Aubrey is going to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong here, that said, good men don't need rules. Always be wary of a man who needs to have rules.
Yeah.
And Hannibal Lecter's
paraphrasing, but yeah.
No,
good men don't have rules. Today's not the day to find out why I have so many.
Yeah, basically. And that's the thing with Hannibal Lecter, isn't it? It's like, he has rules. You do not want to find out why he has them and what happens when they get broken.
Yeah.
Like, that's his appeal. He has a moral compass that I think on a visceral level we can, especially in a fantasy world, identify with. Would we identify with it in real life? No. But, I mean, I don't know if anyone knows what he does to Mason Verger. Would you say he didn't deserve it?
Or, or how Clarice puts it, he won't go after me, he'd see it as rude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
And he does have a code, it's just not the same code the rest of us are ascribed to. And his limits are a bit different to ours.
Yeah, and yes, and his, again, his moral code and his things that he might seem an affront, which maybe puts us back in the reality of why maybe we shouldn't cheer for this person. Like we said, the guy from the orchestra, whoever who fucked up that thing, was an affront to him, who did not deserve to fucking die and be eaten for that.
No, but you can see why someone whose priority is aesthetics and beauty and those things would think so.
Yeah, but but it's also like little things like that are what kind of grounds us in the fact that just reminding us, as much as we cheer for these people, that at times because some of the people they fuck up are really deserve it, that they do also do stuff to people who don't deserve it. And again, I'm going to go back to it. Jigsaw from Saw, same thing.
Dexter.
Some very similar things.
And let's be honest, the difference between us and Hannibal is what we deem deserving of the things Hannibal does to people.
Yeah.
It's what we are willing to do for our version of justice. Because you talk about people who don't deserve it and people who do. There's a great, and it's again the TV show, because that's my fandom. Yep. There's a bit in the TV show where he goes for his medical insurance, and he's having blood drawn, and the guy passes the comment, asks him if he's got any infections or diseases. Now, Hannibal Lecter in the TV show, for those not aware, he went to this thing, and he's reasonably camp to start with, in a pink shirt, a silver tie, like dressed to the nines, like he was, like you look at him and you sort of go, like he's what the 80s would call a metrosexual.
Yeah.
He was very well groomed and gave off that vibe. And obviously the guy who was doing his medical picked up on that and had a problem with it, because asked him if he had any diseases, and then passed the comment, "There's no point in lying to me, the blood work will tell me anyway." Like insinuating that he would lie about his blood test results, i.e. asking him about his sexual history.
Yeah.
It's clearly a reference to the guy and someone asked Brian Fuller on Twitter, and Brian Fuller confirmed that guy is basically insinuating that Hannibal's got AIDS because he presents as gay.
Yeah.
And that's why Hannibal takes his business card, and that's how that goes. And it's that thing of, when you think about what that guy did and the way that guy behaved, and he's a medical professional who's probably got access to hundreds of people who he's doing that to repeatedly, and it's casual to him. Does the end to some extent justify the means? Like Hannibal Lecter killed, why did he kill the nurse who leaned over him? Why did he kill those coppers? If those coppers were like that to him, an articulate, intelligent, albeit imprisoned man, what were they like to those who weren't straight white males with a PhD?
Yeah.
And you do sort of, Hannibal is a very ends justify the means, and he's very, I'm sure Chaos can tell me the actual philosophical term for it, but he's very much a case of, if I kill someone, that's a net good in the world, and that's his goal. That's like, the net good of killing the orchestra guy was the symphony sounds better. The net good of killing the cops is less police.
I don't know necessarily that Hannibal looks at it in those terms as a character. That he might have his own moral compass, but I think he's very well aware of the fact that he's very well aware of the fact that he takes pleasure in what he's doing.
Yeah, no, but you can take pleasure in what you're doing without.
But I don't think he tries to necessarily justify it to himself.
Yeah, but you not necessarily justify it to himself, but I think the justification is there within the character. Like when you read the book, like the way he behaves, like Ring said, this is a film about power, and it's a film about the way people interact as well, and it's how he keeps the upper hand, and it's those exchanges that, and I think this is just a part of that. It's, if you're rude, well, what does rude mean, and what does the consequences of rude happen? Because I would hazard a guess that what we define as rude is not what Hannibal Lecter defines as rude or discourteous or whatever word you want to use.
Let's be honest.
But that's his justification.
Let's be honest, okay? All of us in this stream right now, if we were to ever have interaction of Hannibal Lecter would probably end up on his fucking culinary. We'd all probably end up as a fucking Vindaloo or something, because we would probably all be capable of something he would consider rude.
Yes. But I do think that doesn't, just because we don't understand what code he's working by doesn't mean he's not working by one.
Yeah.
And the best villains in media have a code.
Yeah.
We don't have to understand it, we don't have to accept it, but they have a code. Like, otherwise there's just no internal consistency with the character.
I mean, the only one, like, so the one thing we know about Hannibal, like children are off limits to Hannibal. Absolutely, and acts of cruelty against children is something that he takes great exception to. We know that.
And he takes exception to acts of cruelty against nature. He takes exception to poor artistic renderings of things. I.e. the symphony. You could say, it's. He takes exception to people who are arrogant. You could say, look, if you've joined the Baltimore Orchestra Philharmonic and you can't play properly, that takes some hella arrogance.
Yeah.
So, like, you could. There's ways to. You can almost see what the attitude is. And again, with Clarice, he didn't like when she came at him and tried to segue into stuff in a fake way. He doesn't like arrogance. He doesn't like fakeness. He likes that she's blunt and that she is frank with him, but that also she doesn't lie to him, and that she has a level of. He likes truth, and it might not be the truth, but there's always three sides to every story. There's always three truths in every story, and his truth is.
Anyways, we've gone well beyond the playtime of the movie again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We probably do need to sum up.
So, final thoughts.
I wish I'd seen this movie much sooner. And the next time someone tells you a movie is bigoted or has a poor representation or anything else, watch it before you make a decision.
Unless it's by a certain author.
But if you've not seen that at this point, you're living under a rock.
Indeed.
Well,
or
I
at
mean,
least
I'm not gonna be reading any Robert Galbraith books.
I mean, to be fair, you can probably get them illegally online. You don't have to pay for them.
Yeah.
Like pirate them. I didn't say that, but I did.
And I have no interest in, the Warner Brothers trilogy or the very likely anti-Semitic game.
Yeah, from what I've heard of the game, it's very anti-Semitic. Again, but I still maintain that if you're going to criticize something, at least have the decency to have engaged with it firsthand.
Yeah.
Like, that's my attitude to Musings. Like, I don't care if you dislike something. At least have had the decency to tell me why, and to be able to tell me why on your own terms and not because someone else told you.
Yep.
I avoided this movie for so long because I was told it was scary. For the early 90s it is, but in broad daylight, watching it on my TV, it wasn't. It was more of a drama
Not so much
than anything
scary,
else.
But psychologically disturbing.
It's more a mindfuck. It's more of a mindfuck kind of movie, isn't it?
Yeah. If someone had have told me it's a mindfuck movie and it's not a jump scare movie, I'd have watched it a long time ago because I don't like jump scares.
It's got elements of both, you can say, but
And Chaos.
Basically, don't watch it if you don't like being mindfucked.
Yeah. Chaos. Any final thoughts?
Not really. Beyond I walked into this expecting to be super aware of the bigotry in it, and it was a lot more toned down than I expected, which was nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Jen?
Yeah, Leah, basically what I said before. Yeah, if you don't like Mindfucks, don't watch it. But aside from that, it's a great film. It's a classic. It's got great art and direction to it. You got to allow for the time when it was written in, and that's where those concepts of it being transphobic come from, was because of the time it was written, it was done in. But you've got to look. You can look past that and see a good movie there. Whereas some other movies of the era, you can definitely not look past the obvious homophobia and transphobia in them, because
and I think the lesson learned is not to judge the movie by the audience reception.
Yeah.
I think that's
but the
my
audience
lesson
reception
learned
at the
on this one.
time wasn't so much that it was heavily transphobic. That came
No,
in the
but it is now.
2000s.
Yeah,
And
no, but
it is to a
that's what
certain
I mean.
extent now.
Now
Well, it's not
it is.
completely like that now. I don't even know that it counts as completely transphobic by modern terms. I don't know that you could actually say that. You could say that as a product of the time it was in, it certainly has transphobic tropes. But aside from that, it's not in the same vein as A View to a Kill or something like that. Which
Oh no, nowhere near.
Yeah. And Scummer?
Yeah, I mean, just as a movie, I found this thoroughly enjoyable as a sort of as a thriller and psychological horror kind of thing. And I don't even like so we're doing spooky films. Like, I don't particularly like horror movies as a genre, or I love this, but I love this movie. I absolutely, as we talked about earlier, the performances of the actors in this pretty much all were spot on. There's an awful lot to be said, but I do think it's kind of one of those things. If people have never, even if people are not inclined to watch horror movies, okay, not inclined to watch anything a bit scary or a bit challenging, this is one worth watching. This is a movie that is worth watching at least once. I'll leave it that.
So, ironically, like, with the exception of the last movie of this month, we asked, like, yes, like, the idea for this month was going to be horror and the other, but instead we ended up making a serial killer month theme. Because we started it off with, Last Man on Earth, which is Vincent Price going on a murder spree after a plague that turns people into vampires. And now we've done Silence of the Lambs, and next week we're doing American Psycho.
Oh, I haven't seen that movie.
You really haven't done horror. You should do classic horror, like the werewolf.
No,
I
feel this month
that's what you need to do at some point.
I'm gonna go on our webpage and I'm gonna rename this to Mindfuck Month.
Yeah.
And
of course, as something of a palate cleanser, the last movie we're discussing this month is going to be Paranorman,
which I haven't seen.
Still haven't seen that one either, but okay.
Wow,
I haven't seen any of the movies this month until we've done them.
Yeah.
That's an odd film to add into the month.
Well, yeah.
Ring's choice.
Yeah, it was. I wanted to do Paranorman for a Halloween episode.
I get it though. We're gonna have like 3 intense movies and then something a little bit of that,
and then something that's almost a kids movie.
A little bit of a release.
Oh, it is a family movie. Yeah,
it's a family movie, but not all kids could watch it.
Yeah. Well, I know
PG, not universal.
Like I will say the only reason I watched it is because I was the third wheel on a date at AIT.
Okay, but you were raised in a family that didn't let you watch Mary Poppins, so your opinion on what children can watch is really skewed.
And
Well,
the
yeah.
only reason I've watched it is I've got kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyways, with that, we'll move to Shilling. Jen, do you have anything coming up?
I don't. Well, I may do. I don't know. I'm still getting myself organized enough to actually do stuff on my own channel again. But I am appearing on other people's streams on and off at the moment. But now I've got a bit of soundproofing, and the set's got to be finished up properly. But yeah, ultimately, I'm more or less back. But I haven't got my stuff organized yet. But there will be in the future. Keep an eye out.
Yep. Jeff?
Nothing to share right now. Just go subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll upload stuff when I upload stuff. That's it.
Chaos?
No, I've not got anything in a timescale that's worth mentioning.
Noodle?
I'm not shilling for myself, and this is not sponsored or anything. If you're interested in psychiatry in media and psychology in media, I strongly recommend Dr. Elliot Carthy. Doctor Reacts to Media on YouTube. He's very good. He's very good at breaking down psychological concepts, and he's a practicing forensic psychiatrist in the UK, so he knows his shit. If you're interested in that aspect of it, what we were discussing this time. If you are interested in tropes, etc., we haven't mentioned them for a while, so I'm going to mention them. OSP's Trope Talks.
Yes.
I think some of the best educational material on the internet. Very well done, very clear, well worth a look. As a, if you want to talk, if you want to understand some of the concepts we just breeze over and discuss or point out, there's a trope talk for it, and you should definitely watch that. Those are the two things. It's not shilling, but recommending.
Right. And
those are what I'm saying. Also, watch the Hannibal TV show; it's good.
Once again, I have projects on the burners for if I get for when I have the time and spoons. If any of them result in a video, it'll be on my channel next week. American Psycho. And with that, we'll go to taglines. Noodle.
Take care, be good, and if you can't be good, remember, always use your noodle.
Chaos.
Have a day, and remember, communication is key.
Jen.
Try not to choke on the selfie stick.
Damn it, Jen!
Jeff.
I don't do taglines, as you know, but I do apologise, guys. It's been nice chatting, and I'd love to chat for longer. But I'm having an old friend for dinner.
Sorry.
And remember,
yeah, sorry.
The purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think on. Too often, we forget that.